Do not adjust your radio dial. You are tuned in to the Mark Order Podcast. Join the Mark Order.
With 1 week, and it's like I forget how to do this. It's not as easy as riding a bike.
It'll be fun.
I'll be good. Welcome everybody. It's Wednesday night. You know what that means? It is the Mark Order Podcast. Here, part of the Shining Wizards Network. We are live on YouTube. We are also live on X. We are also back on Facebook. I'm not banned anymore. Woo! Welcome back to our Facebook viewers. And we're trying something new tonight, Joe. We're live on Instagram.
Ooh.
That whole setup is funky, but we're live on Instagram, at least from my understanding, for the first hour, because there are some limits with Instagram. But welcome to anybody who might be finding us now on Instagram. So hi everybody. Hi Joe, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm back in my regular seat. Brendan Heaney is asking, aren't you on location in Jacksonville this week? Sorry, Brendan. That's when the Shining Wizards were paying for my travel during, pandemic. And I had a hookup from Taz to be able to sort of get in. That's gone away, but I was on location in Newark last week, which was a lot of fun for the first show in 2024. So no, I'm still home in New Jersey, not in Jacksonville tonight, although Jacksonville does have a place very close to my heart. Very close. Joe, we used to have run-ins from Taz, from JR.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we were at one point a 5-person group here on the Mark Order Podcast. Could you imagine doing this with 5 people? It's tough enough some nights with 4.
Sometimes it's tough with 2. We'll see how it goes.
It's true. We're supposed to be 3. Kate's supposed to be joining us, so I don't know where she's at, but she's supposed to be joining us if everything holds for her. Joe, you might not know, but we're dealing with certain parts of New Jersey. We're dealing with like flooding. Like I have that going on in my neck of the woods.
It's winter. Aren't you supposed to be getting like feet of snow and not rain and flooding?
Well, we did get snow over the weekend, although parts of New Jersey got more than others. Like I might have gotten somewhere between 4 to 6 inches where I live. So I had a lot of snow, but here's the problem is that back in December before Christmas, there was a lot of rain, and that sort of primed everything to set this up now because we flooded back then. And I say we, but like my house wasn't affected, but my neighborhoods were. Like a lot of shit got flooded. And so now this past weekend we got snow. And now yesterday it rained like 4 inches of rain and the weather warmed up. So like yesterday I went to my office and when I left my house in the morning, there was still snow on the ground. This morning there is no snow on the ground. So all that snow melting, plus the rain, plus the warm weather, plus the ground's already wet. is resulting in flooding, and they're saying it's not supposed to crest till like tomorrow afternoon. So
Jeez.
they're saying they're expecting it to be like 21 feet in some areas. Like that's high as shit apparently. So
Well, we here in Omaha, we got about 5.5 inches of snow the other day, and then tomorrow night into Friday morning, we're getting there 4 to 6.
I'll say this. I'm okay not having snow. I don't mind the snow. I went out and shoveled this weekend. It was just wet. It was heavy and wet. But there wasn't a ton of it. I don't have a snow blower because every year I'm like, I'm gonna go buy a snow blower. Like this is the year. And then of course I'm like, I'm gonna buy that goddamn snow blower and it's not gonna snow. So I'm just gonna save my money. And so I just haven't bought a snowblower.
I have 2 questions then. One, your AntMoney, so how do you not have a snowblower? Or two, your AntMoney, how do you not pay for people to remove snow for you?
I'm AntMoney because of those things, my friend.
That's fair.
I gets money, I keeps money, I spend it wisely, and I invest wisely. So
I can tell you I'm not looking forward to Sunday's high temperature in Omaha, which is going to be a brisk -7 for a high.
but you're gonna be out of Omaha, aren't you?
My car won't be, so I feel bad for my car having to endure the weather.
Do you have one of those gimmicks where you can start your car from your phone? Because you could just start it up and let it heat up and be like, there you go, buddy.
I do have an app for that.
There's always an app for that.
But the fact that it's going to get like -19, not factoring a wind chill, which just seems stupid.
Yeah, that's wild. That's brutal. So Joe, you're going to San Jose this weekend.
I am going to find my way to San Jose. Yep.
Okay. Where the wine flows like the salmon of Capistrano. No, that's Aspen. Sorry.
Aspen. A little place called Aspen, yeah. But yes, fly out Saturday, so I'll get there early, right around noon out there. So hopefully plenty of time before the show starts.
Cool. And you're just going for the weekend, or you're staying for the week?
I'll be out there Saturday, and then I think I fly back in, I think about 9:30 on Wednesday night.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So by the time I get back, you guys will probably still be on.
Well, I don't know about that, my friend, because this show might not be as long as it used to be for those who, and this is a good time to mention it. So, Joe, I bring that up because one, I think you're going to the New Japan show out in San Jose. What's it called?
Battle in the Valley.
Battle in the Valley. Okay, so if anybody is out in the San Jose area and going to Battle in the Valley, hit up. Well, I shouldn't say this without asking you, Joe. You want people to hit you up if they're going to be there?
Sure, at me. Find me on socials.
Find Joe on socials. We'll plug them later. Let them know you're going to be there. And you're also traveling for an occasion?
Yeah, Martin Luther King Day.
Okay.
On Monday,
Is it? I couldn't remember if it was like, oh, it's work or if it's just for the show. But
no, it's actually just it's strictly because it's my birthday weekend.
Well, there we go. Happy early birthday, Joe.
My birthday's Monday on Martin Luther King Day. So
hey, happy early birthday.
Wow.
I have a dream that it's going to be Joe's birthday.
That's a weird dream.
I know. But as I say, so Joe's not going to be here, which is unfortunate because Joe and Ryan just started the Collider Cast, our Saturday night Mark Order Collider Cast. So he won't be here for episode 2, but they did episode 1 this past week, and it's Ryan Schlong and Joe's Saturday night show. And they're gonna have like special guests that run in. So this past weekend was episode 1. They had Kyle K. Sparks on as a special guest, and they watched along with Collision. So that sort of ties back to this show because we are not going to spend time sort of chatting through Rampage and Collision or covering those results because That's sort of our thing on Saturdays now. So we're going to cut back on that stuff here so we can talk about Dynamite and everything else we bullshit about. But Joe won't be there this Saturday. And Ryan will be on, and I believe he's trying to line up a couple guests. So Ryan is not here tonight because he's choosing, believe it or not, he's choosing to see the Philadelphia Flyers play hockey tonight.
He's paying to watch them.
They should be paying him in all reality. But
this is why he's not Ryan money.
That's very true. He's just bleeding money. So that's our Saturday nights, the Mark Order Saturday Night Collider cast. Joe's not going to be here. I can't be here for it either. I'm going to see Tool this weekend in New York, so that'll be fun. While I would love to do a Collider cast with Ryan, not this weekend. Thank you. So I'll be getting weird with Tool on Friday and Saturday night. And we're staying over in the city, so that'll be fun. It's rare because we're so close to the city that I stay over in the city, but I was like, I've seen Tool sober many times. This time, these 2 times, I will not. So this will be good. And I'm not doing a Collider cast. But I think next weekend I might be able to do, maybe pop in if you'll have me. You have to ask me. I'm not a host.
Oh, true. But I don't blame you. I mean, hanging out with Maynard, hanging out with Ryan. Maynard, Ryan.
Yeah, it's not really that close.
No.
So, oh man. Well, let me think of, I thought I had something else to mention to you, Joe, but I don't. No, I guess I don't. Well, anyway, about the Collider cast. How did you feel for the first episode, Joe? I mean, you guys, what I think is awesome, if I can sort of kiss the ring a little bit. I love that you have different layout, some different graphics and stuff like that. So it's a totally different vibe of a show, and it's different from what we do here. How'd you feel about it for the first one? And of course, you'll continue to grow, but how did the first one feel?
Oh, it felt good. It was good. It's a nice way to cover Collision in a different way than some other people are doing it, and how we were doing it before. So not only are we able to do something new, but we're also able to shave some time off of this podcast episode, on Dynamite recaps. So that helps. So it's a win-win. And the flow of the show really is, you talked about the matches, react to what's going on, but there's plenty of time in between to kind of either BS or talk about other things going on in the company, other things going on in kind of the news and notes of things surrounding AEW and professional wrestling. So yeah, it's really a jack of all trades type of show.
Now I'll say this, Joe. I checked it out a couple different times. I jumped on to congratulate you guys on episode 1. I wasn't trying to weasel my way in.
That's shirtless though. I feel like if you run in, you have to be shirtless.
That's a Millionaire Matt gimmick. I don't feel like now I'm not a gimmick thief. We've established that there are other people who are gimmick thieves. That's not this guy.
People who are driving who aren't on the show tonight.
Well, I wasn't going to say it, but I will say this. I checked out the show at various points in time, see what you guys were talking about, maybe what you thought about the show. You were great. Kyle was great. Great insight from Kyle. Ryan could use a little work. Not going to lie.
Okay. Good show notes. Good notes.
I gave you guys some notes afterwards. There wasn't enough revisionist history.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan wasn't showing enough cleavage.
He never does.
I think if we can fix those things, and less women's wrestling altogether. I think if we can fix those things, we're number 1 on Saturday nights. More than Collision. More than Collision. By the way, I will find it weird. I do find it weird. Ryan says Ryan's already saying he's gonna bury me Saturday. Good luck, Ryan. Is it weird that well, I'm not saying anything because I don't know if Ryan's locked in his guests, so I'm not saying anything. I'm gonna hold it until I know Ryan has guests, or I'll just talk about it next week in our opening.
There you go.
Anyway, well, good, Joe. I'm glad it felt good, and again, you guys will continue to grow and flourish and find, the things that sort of set the Saturday night show apart more than it just being a watch along compared to what we do here, where it's like a recap. You'll have your own bits. I would love to see more characters out of Ryan. I know that.
We all.
And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of like a behind the mask of like, Ryan, how do you come up with these characters? What's your thought process? How do you get into character? Like, I would love that kind of conversation as well. I mean, I know you're watching wrestling and there's a lot going on, but that stuff always interests me. I think we'll find a niche audience if we could do that. But
maybe he protects the gimmick though. Maybe he doesn't pull back the curtain.
But he can play another gimmick if he pretends to pull back the curtain, but he's still not giving you all of his secrets.
What if they're really his various split personalities?
I mean, that now we're talking more than just another piece of podcast content. We're talking something we can maybe sell to Netflix. Okay, that's all I'm saying is that gives us a lot of room for growth. A lot of room.
Okay.
So, but congrats, Joe. The Saturday night show is fun. I'm excited to see where it goes for you guys. And at some point, look forward to being asked to be a guest. So far, only one person's asked me to be a guest of something. Actually, check that. 2. Tom Talks Rubbish, although my shit probably didn't do well. And then 2, Milwaukee Tom. Only Toms are asking me to be part of their shit.
No Dicks or Harrys?
No, just Toms.
Toms.
No Dicks, no Harrys.
All right.
Yeah, it checks out.
I mean, we have an open door policy for you.
No. I don't like open door. I like to be asked. And like I said, I believe that in 2 weeks, the 20th, I think I'm going to be available. I think, but I have to be asked, and then I'll check.
Sounds like when someone wants to be proposed to, but then they pick out the ring and they tell you like what date works good for them to be proposed to and where. I feel like this is borderline you wanting to be wanted and courted and wooed.
Okay. It's not that much, but I hear what you're saying. There are a lot of similarities.
Okay.
There are a lot of similarities. I like how Ryan's supposed to be driving, but he's checking in the chat. That's dangerous, Ryan. I hope you're at least talking to your phone. Talk to text. He says, I'm not available. Joe, did I not just throw out my availability?
January 20th.
There you go. Thank you. And I will say this, Eric Freed's checking in. I asked you to be on my pod with Danny Magic. That's true. You did. And I think I said, I'm game, but you have to work around Danny Magic's availability. Good luck, Eric. It's not me. That's not me being a dick. It's just good luck. But I'm more than happy to do it. SJ also saying you were on ROH Revelry, by the way. It was awesome. You helped Tom with the Walking Dead question. Yes, Milwaukee Tom is one of the 2 Toms that I was referencing, being asked to be part of something. I am still I'm slightly offended. I will say this, and this will be my last, and then I'm going to get off my soapbox and we'll get going with the real talk here. But Joe, I am slightly offended that I've never even been approached about Between Two Beards, because I actually have a beard.
That's true.
Ryan
has a goatee.
Exactly. Not a beard. It's a totally separate facial hair. Totally separate. That would be like Ryan saying like, "Oh, I'm going on between two beards," and Ryan has a Fu Manchu. It's not a beard, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long mustache.
So Ryan is in this instance the weird guy on the fringe, kind of like a Wardlow in the Undisputed Kingdom, where it just doesn't quite seem like he fits there.
You're right. Yeah. It's just kind of like, what are we doing? You don't have a beard. I feel like that should be prerequisite for being on that show. You have to have a beard to be on two beards.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm out. I can't grow a beard, so
You can get a wig, not a wig, but you can get a fake beard.
I have some like self-respect.
You're not like some people who've been on this show who put on wigs.
I mean, I have wigs. I'll do that, but a fake beard is too far.
Yeah, that is a lot. I'm not gonna lie, that's a lot. That's
But before we move on, let me cordially invite you and request your presence on ColliderCast on January 20th.
okay. I will check my schedule and get back to you guys.
Thank you. RSVP by the 18th.
Certainly. Watch. I absolutely probably gave you the wrong date. It's probably like the next Saturday.
Even
I
better.
definitely know there's a Saturday where it's like, oh, I'm 100% available. Like, I'll be home by myself. I might have to join like after 8:00 because I have to put somebody to bed here. I have to put a small child to bed and make sure he actually stays asleep. But we'll work out those details. We'll work it out. All right, Joe, what do you say we get along with what happened tonight on Dynamite? Because like we said, there's nothing for us to catch up on Rampage or Collision because we're doing it Saturday nights now. So just a note to the people out there who maybe have always checked us out and you're coming in now and you're like, what the hell? How are they talking about Dynamite at like 20 minutes in? This new show, the Mark Order Saturday Night Collider cast featuring Asian Joe and Ryan Schlong is covering Rampage and Collision as it happens. Actually, this weekend, Ryan's also covering Battle of the Belts or for the Belts. I can't remember, but he's gonna cover that too. Wow, what a bonus on the new show. So we're not covering that actively here. You got to turn on Saturday nights, and if you didn't check out Saturday night, and you want to see it after the fact to sort of get, Joe and Ryan and whoever the guest was at the time this past week was Kyle K. Sparks. You can go over to YouTube and check it out on our in our archives. You can also go over to YouTube Music. We're up on YouTube Music. You can go to Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It is up and available for you to hear. So definitely go back and check it out if you'd like, because they are definitely covering everything that's going on Collision on the Collider cast. So we're gonna jump in, that means, and talk about Dynamite. And we're gonna start out where everybody would normally start out, and that's at the beginning of the show. See, I feel so out of place now, Joe.
I don't know where you put the commercial break at now.
Don't worry, I've got that right here. I've got it all planned out. I'll say around the 9:00 hour of Dynamite. So anyway, we opened up tonight. It should be, we should mention was the Dynamite homecoming. Now as some people, as Brendan said in the chat, why aren't I in Jacksonville? And I was joking about this earlier. This podcast came out of Shining Wizards bonus content where we were talking about AEW Dynamite, basically doing the show we do now for the Shining Wizards. And I used to I used to travel to Jacksonville, live in the kayfabe. So I used to travel every week to Jacksonville. I'd take the red eye home in the morning, but I'd travel out that day. It was very hard to fly during a pandemic too, but I got it done. And then this show started. So this was a homecoming for them, a homecoming of sorts for us. And a pretty cool thing, we'll see this sort of weave through the night. There were a lot of talents that came out of their time when they were basing the show out of Jacksonville, because, you know, they were there for basically like 2.5 years right after the company started. So all of that being said, we kick off the homecoming edition of Dynamite with Hangman Adam Page and Claudio Castagnoli one-on-one. As those of you listening out there might remember, last week Hangman Adam Page was looking for a fight, and Claudio sort of answered that call. He said, "Oh, if you want to fight, I'll be there Wednesday. You know, we can make this happen." And here we are. We get Hangman and Claudio. And just cutting to the end of this match, Joe, Hangman Adam Page wins by pinfall with the buckshot. There's really nothing that happens afterwards, which is sort of, I have some thoughts about that. We'll see that sort of come back later. But to me, it was a little odd that nothing happened afterwards. Before I sort of expand on that, Joe, I do want to figure out I do want to hear what you thought about this match to open the night.
It was a good match, but especially opening in Jacksonville to have, you know, Heyman and Claudio go at it. It felt very main event quality. And I kind of like sometimes having these random, almost one-off matches where it's really just, you know, two guys looking for a fight, looking to see who the better man is that night. Like you said, there wasn't a whole lot of build to it other than, you know, Heyman was looking for a fight and Claudio stepped up. You know, there's a lot of interesting. I noticed a lot of interesting camera work during this match just because of obviously Daly's place being a different venue. So it was kind of fun to kind of get a little variation than what we do at arenas. So I'll give production crew credit there for that. And I think I'll call a spot here since the two people who like to usually call spots, the one who does it as their gimmick and the one who steals it. The point where Claudio throws Heyman into the ring or tries to throw him back in the ring, and Heyman kind of bounces out and does a return lariat.
Yep.
That was a fun little spot that I haven't seen before from him. But yeah, I think, you know, with Heyman winning, it makes sense as we go on later in the night to kind of build him back up after that loss to Swerve.
Yeah. I will say, excuse me, I thought it was awesome that to beat him, he had to hit 2 buckshot lariats, and he hit them back to back on 2 different sides of the ring. I thought that was nice. And I also thought it was great that commentary, you know, commentary called out, like, you know, the pile driver or the dead eye. You know, it's not enough for somebody like Claudio because the BCC really focuses on, you know, being neck strong, for lack of a better term, but being neck strong and, you know, making sure that this stays strong and you can't get knocked out by a pile driver. So it's sort of, you know, it sort of gave you another a layer to why, you know, Claudio is sort of such a hard opponent to beat. I also to your point about production, Joe, you know, we haven't seen a show at Daly's place in quite some time. You forget it's a completely different configuration. You know, during the pandemic, it was a different story because you don't have to worry about a live crowd being there where people are going to sit or be able to see things. They just set up their stage in the way that made most sense for television and to have a full entrance ramp and all that kind of stuff. These shows with the audiences in Daly's place are completely different configuration than we're used to seeing, besides maybe, you know, some really special places like, you know, when they do Grand Slam, it's a long entrance ramp that goes directly up to the ring. Other places they go have ramps that go directly into the ring. Never this sort of side catty corner stage thing and two hard cams on two different sides of the ring. Sometimes I feel like that leaves a lot of room for the talent to sort of get confused as where to look or where to position themselves. But to your point, Joe, they do a pretty good job with shooting these shows and the way they set them up to make them feel totally different and special. And I thought they did a good job with it tonight. So I wanted to just tag on to your sort of production point. Now, I didn't have a problem with Hangman winning because we know he's on a warpath a little bit here. What I did find a little odd, well, I don't know if I called it odd, but it made me scratch my head in the moment. But I was like, we're not going to hear anything from Hangman Adam Page? Like nothing here? Like and again, because we see this come back into play later, it became okay for me. But at this point in the night, having Hangman win this match after saying he's looking for a fight, he's coming for Swerve, he wants a title, all this stuff, it was just an odd choice for me in that moment. Again, not knowing what was coming later, I felt like it was really a weird choice not to have him say anything. So I wasn't sure if you thought in the moment, Joe, if you felt the same way.
No, I guess it didn't bother me too much. I didn't think about it like that. I mean, he kind of, for me, Heyman has kind of gone through this like ass kicker phase right now. He just wants to run through people and build himself back up to the top after getting knocked off by Swerve. So, no, him saying less, I guess, didn't hurt like what my thought was of what his character was doing. But when you mention it now, though, it makes sense, and I'm glad we got a payoff for that later on.
Yeah, I am too. But in that moment, I was like, really, we're not going to hear anything? He's not going to say anything? Like, and it's not even like I'm looking for him to address the crowd in Jacksonville, like, hey, it's good to be back or anything like that. Like, I was just looking for him to say something about Swerve or Samoa Joe because of everything that he's been sort of doing backstage. But we do get a payoff, and we will get there as we talk through the show. But it is also worth mentioning that as they move on from this match, before we get to our next match in the card, they do show a memorial video package for Brody Lee. And man, it's wild, Joe. Me and Mrs. Money were sitting there on the couch, and this was a huge part of the pandemic for us. Wednesday nights for us was a night that we were like, we're definitely getting takeout from somewhere. We're watching the show. It was sort of like our moment during the pandemic to know, like, we're in the middle of the week. You know what I mean? Like, it was a sort of like a timestamp for us and just gave us something to look forward to, eating takeout and sort of like vegging and watching TV. And that was sort of even before we were doing a podcast, right? But we sort of looked at each other and we're like, it's such a bummer still that he was essentially one of the good ones. You know what I mean? Like, seems like everything you read or hear about the guy was that he was just such an incredible person. But also, Joe, wild that he debuted during the pandemic with no crowd. And then never got to see or feel or hear the fans, give him the adulation that he deserved because he never made it out of the pandemic because of the health problems that he had and eventually succumbed to. So it was a bummer, but man, seeing some of those moments in the video package, the battles that he had, just made me, again, one, like, sad because it was such a bummer that he went well before his time, but also at the same time, like, made me super happy because it was like, oh yeah, that was fantastic and he was so good. And like, I was very lucky to have seen him sort of here at the end. Just wish it could have been more. So the video package I thought was great, and they talked through it, and how great he was and what he meant, to them during that time. I don't know if you had any thoughts of your own, Joe, but I just felt like I wanted to mention a couple things there.
No, I agree. I think, having that weird point of time that felt so disjointed and everything else, and to have people like him kind of rise up during that time and really carry things and help carry things a little bit. While he didn't get to experience the AEW live crowd, but like they're always going to be this part of history. It's always going to be associated with it. I think he's kind of a face of it. I think that's really cool for his legacy, and it's a shame that we'll never know. No, I sometimes think like, where would he be? All these years in the company, like, what would his world title run look like? What kind of feud would he have? I mean, because putting a CNC title on him that soon, like, you knew they had confidence in him that he could be a single champion. So it's always awful when you have to think. You always have those what ifs when people are gone too soon.
I mean, even beyond, and now as you're saying some of that, Joe, like, so carrying the company, yes, beyond the wrestling ring, he was a huge part of being the elite during that time. I mean, that was always a segment that I know I looked forward to. Ryan and I would watch it pretty regularly. I think we all sort of would, but Ryan and I sort of kept up with it regularly with the Dark Order segments and Brody Lee being such a big part of it and hitting people with the papers. So fucking funny. But fast forwarding to what you're talking about what future runs and feuds would look like, could you imagine if everything has worked out the way it would have had he still been alive and here? Like, him and Samoa Joe would be awesome. Like, him and, even some of these other big guys, like, do something with him and Hobbs, him and Miro, right? Him and, man, you could basically put anybody, Brody Lee and this person, and I think we could find upside on almost all of it. And I don't think it's looking back with rose-colored glasses. Like, he just did great work. And you're right. They put that title on him fast. And I think, it came back off of him quickly because of the health issues that were happening, which is a shame. But I think he was going to have that title for a long time and then move him on to the larger picture. But man, like, the programs that he could have been in would have been amazing. Had every move they've made since still worked out, that would have been amazing. Even Big G saying here, him and Punk when he was there would have been good. Yeah, that could have been fantastic. So
I think all the him, if you him and all the any of the New Japan talent during the Forbidden Door runs, like, I think that would have been a lot of fun to watch him go up against some of those guys.
Dude, him and Minoru Suzuki. Even just have him do some matches with the Pitbull. I mean, just amazing. I mean, it's a shame. It's a shame, and I think we're always going to sort of be like, man, it sucks in what could have been. But I think we all still sort of find, like, hey, we were lucky. We were lucky to get him there for the time that he was there, because after some of the stuff he was doing in the WWE and that dried up and sort of ran its course, this was an awesome fresh start for him. And the character was great. And he, the faction that they put around him, it was all just really good stuff.
I hope that a silver lining out of, all the tragedies of losing people way early and too soon is that, that we don't wait and think we have more time to set up these great matches with people, these dream matches that we want. I think sometimes, promotions would fall to the point of like, oh, we can book that a few years down the road. They'll still be under contract here. We'll be fine. But like, anything can happen, whether it's a health condition or an injury or So I hope that this gives people, speeds up things a little bit to, like, when you have the opportunity to pull the trigger on a dream match, to do it, and or at least find a way to do it instead of trying to build it for years down the road.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think there are certainly moments like that where it's like, I'm with you, where I think people think like, oh, we can book this for a year out. We'll put it on the roadmap, but we're in no rush. And Yeah, hopefully now that they don't wait for that. And even just a couple notes in the chat, I see Scott George saying, "Kind of wish Matt Hardy was on the show because he's linked to Brody debuting the same night." Yeah, absolutely. That would have been a nice tie-in. And then Big G also commented, "Think about Danielson too." Yeah, I mean the stuff that him and Danielson could have done would have been crazy. So sucks. But a nice memorial package for him. And then we move on to our next match. And they had a couple of these set up, but we show our 8-man tag team next on the card. Where the commentary sort of mentioned that some of these teams were sort of odd bedfellows. You had some guys who were heel working with faces, and some of these teams, that sort of didn't mesh together. So they were sort of laying groundwork for maybe some of these teams not working so well together. But we did have Adam Copeland, Dustin Rhodes, Orange Cassidy, and Preston Vance versus Lance Archer and the Mogul Embassy action, which was Brian Cage and Gates of Agony, which is Bishop Khan and Toa Leona. So I think that's sort of what led them to talk about some of these guys maybe not being on the same page, because Preston Vance, part of LFI, sort of heelish, definitely heelish, more than face, and he's working with the faces here. But also, again, can't forget Preston Vance was handpicked by Brody Lee. And we're sort of playing homage to Brody Lee here in Jacksonville tonight, as well as guys who sort of made their way onto the scene in Jacksonville. So that was a nice addition to this team. Same thing with Lance Archer. Brian Cage had some moments during the pandemic in Jacksonville. Dustin Rhodes has been there the whole time. Orange Cassidy too, some amazing moments in Jacksonville. So this was a nice sort of team, seemingly random team put together for this 8-man. But as we cut through to the end, Adam Copeland, Dustin Rhodes, Orange Cassidy, and Preston Vance win by pinfall with a discus lariat from Preston Vance on Bishop Khan. So again, we get a nice sort of tie back here to Brody Lee. Preston Vance gets the pin, the win for his team. And everything that happened should happen. So Joe, what did you think of the match and the teams here? Any problems?
I'm glad they explained about the teams. I got a little confused when I saw the match. I'm like, why Preston Vance teaming with all these faces? So I'm glad they put some background on that for this match, and also for the other women's 8 women tag match. And the match itself was, kind of what you expect with an 8-man. It's a little chaotic. Then there's always that, moment later in the match where all hell breaks loose and everyone's hitting their finisher. But I liked the presentation of Vance in this match a lot. I thought it was a nice little breakout for him. I think he worked really well as a face, and I think they could really build him up as a face, as a single person, as a singles, if he wasn't part of LFI. But I think some of the match itself, though, Toa had a nice little pounce on Orange. I like the story through the match of Orange trying to hit a choke slam on Brian Cage and one of the members of the Gates of Agony.
Just fantastic.
It was amazing. Just seeing how small his hand was against like Brian Cage's neck.
Brian Cage and Lance Archer. I think he tried to get Lance Archer up too.
But it's like it wouldn't even come close to like gripping the neck. And then Taz calling it out was great. But I think my one complaint was they missed the finish live on the camera.
Yeah.
I don't know why they got stuck on Dustin Rhodes on the outside, but like they missed the discus lariat by Vance. But thankfully we have replay, so they showed it in replay.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's sort of one of the hazards of having so many guys, as part of one match. It's like, where do we cut to the camera? And to his credit, Dustin did do, I think, like a front flip, off the apron onto whoever was on the outside. I don't know who it was at that point. So I guess they tried to catch it. They had missed that too, though. They had just sort of had the aftermath. But yeah, I mean, nitpicking a little bit, but yeah, I thought it was a perfectly fine match. And Scott George mentioned it here. I was, I was going to get to it here. They did this same sort of thing during the original Brody tribute in 2020, where they sort of put these seemingly random teams together. He had teamed with Cody and Orange Cassidy during that show, Preston Vance, that is. So they've done this before. Nice little tributes here to Brody Lee, and yeah, a fun match where everybody got to show a little bit of something. And this is Adam Copeland's first time at Daly's Place, so the crowd seemed hot for it, and yeah, I mean, just a nice match to put on in front of this live crowd. So they go to commercial and they come back to a backstage interview with the stunning Renee Paquette. She's backstage with Bullet Club Gold, and Jay White says that anything the Undisputed Kingdom can do, they can do better. And the Acclaimed eventually roll up, and they say that it's amazing that they have a common enemy, and imagine all of them holding gold at the same time. And the Acclaimed is the people's choice, and last week the people were cheering for the Bang Bang Gang almost as much as they cheer for the Acclaimed. And they don't have to be friends, but they can work together. One big Bang Bang Scissor Gang. And the Switchblade says that they need time to think it over. They're not a faction, because I think Bowen said a super faction, and Switchblade says, we're not a faction, we're a gang. We need to think it over. Keep your phones on. And then we move on to our next segment. So, Joe, I wasn't here last week to talk about it. I think I was texting you guys during the show when I was sitting in Newark. Personally, I don't want to see this happen. I understand the reasoning behind, having the Acclaimed and Bullet Club Gold team up, because you need to even the odds up against, 5 members of the Undisputed Kingdom. Technically 6, but, Adam Cole can't go. So I understand them sort of banding together with a common enemy to try to take them out. But there's still something I don't love about having, a heel faction like Bullet Club Gold teaming up with, a bubblegum babyface team like the Acclaimed. I don't want to see it, even if they have a common enemy. I don't want to see the Bullet Club Gold sort of take a face turn, even if it's for a short period. I don't know if that makes me sound like a boomer or something like that, but I don't love it. Maybe it's because I'm just not in love with the Acclaimed as much as I used to be, because they've just sort of seemed lost in the ether, and those 6-man tag belts are sort of lost right now.
Yeah, I think for me, the Acclaimed to kind of hit a ceiling where, yeah, you get cheered and people love to do the scissoring gesture and all that stuff, but like their feuds, their in-ring stuff just feels like repetitive. Like we've all seen it over and over again. So I feel like they need some kind of refresh. But to me, it'd be interesting to see if they team up. I'm going to put my little fancy booking hat on. If they teamed up to take on, the Undisputed Kingdom, and during that, what if maybe Jay White turns on them and goes with Undisputed Kingdom? Because I don't know how long Juice is out, so Jay would be kind of on by himself, and you put the guns back with their dad and their, I don't know, brothers of the Acclaimed.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't be mad at getting Jay White away from that. And Bullet Club Gold always seemed kind of a weird, watered down Bullet Club. Like they've taken the name and just kind of made it even less than what it was. So I wouldn't mind him doing that, I guess, if they need something for him to do.
Yeah. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I'm not poo-pooing your idea. I don't know, man. Like the Acclaimed, it's such a hard thing for me right now because like I do like the Acclaimed, you know.
Mhm.
I just like what are they at this point? You know what I mean? Like they're holding belts that don't essentially mean anything at the moment because they're never being defended. You know, they weren't on the past couple pay-per-views. Like you know, we need to do something. First of all, we need to do something with those belts. But second of all, I think maybe the Acclaimed it's run its course. I think out of all of us here, Kate sort of beat the drum for like get Bowens on his own. And I'm for that.
Mhm.
Or split Bowens out somewhere else. But until you get the belts off them, they're really tied together. You sort of can't. So, you know, pulling Switch out of Bullet Club Gold is fine. I mean, but he's like, you know, he's the leader of that faction, so it would sort of be weird. I don't
Mhm.
know. I'm trying to figure out a way to make this work, but I just can't get comfortable with the feeling of like putting these two groups together and then having this giant gang war. I just
No, I
doesn't
get it.
interest me. I don't know.
But I do like the fact that they like Bowens is really they really focused heavily on Bowens. I think he kind of the talker of the group. Uh, he's the best wrestler like in the ring. He's the best showman in the ring. Um, so I think that bodes well for his future as a single person and kind of what they see in him. And like you said, hopefully they can do something with that group and whether they break them up, turn them heel, turn some of them heel, just something.
You know, I almost wish that at some point they would even just basically be like, okay, um, like maybe just naturally sort of split apart, right? Like Bowens wants to take things more seriously. Caster just wants to have a good time and do his raps and sort of be silly. Like you can sort of naturally break them up like that. It doesn't have to explode and sort of fracture, but like I think we just have to do something to inject a little bit of life into them.
Yeah.
You know?
You almost had that natural break after with their feud with House of Black. Like you could have, when Daddy Ass left, because you were questioning his abilities, and like that could have been a nice way to like do more single things, but
Yeah.
alas, here we are.
Well, we'll see what happens next for the Acclaimed and the Bang Bang Gang. But for now, we move on to Samoa Joe making his entrance in the ring. And he gets on the mic and introduces himself, but Jacksonville knows who he is. And he says that tonight there's going to be some changes to the championship challenge protocol because he's got the target on his back. And no more whining out there or on the mic or making as he said, ho ass comments on social media. You can bring your record and representation and submit it to the championship committee and hope to get a pass to get stomped out in front of everyone who's ever cheered you on. And that's when Mr. Shane Swerve Strickland enters with the Mogul Embassy in tow. He says this is his first time in Daly's place, but it's still Swerve's house. And he talks about how his thing with Hangman Adam Page wasn't personal. He was after his spot, and look where he is. He took it. So he'll say the same thing to Samoa Joe. It's not personal. He just wants the title. He's gonna take it. However, after he takes the title and Joe chooses to make it personally, he he's gonna sort of stay the course and be Swerve, right? So that's when Hangman and Adam Page comes out. So now we have a little bit of that retribution from not hearing Adam Page, earlier. Um, so Adam Page says that 2023 held a lot for him. He beat Moxley in a Texas death match. He reunited with the Elite in an Anarchy in the Arena in Blood and Guts. And he also said that he and Swerve sort of had their little run. So he's getting in Swerve's face, and they're kind of going back and forth, and then Swerve makes his exit, and then Paige gets in Joe's face, and sort of tells Joe he wants the title, he's coming for it, and now they're nose to nose, and he sort of walks off, and then Samoa Joe sort of is left there by himself, and he holds the title up, and that's when Hook's music hits. And Hook slides into the ring. He goes face to face with Joe, touching foreheads, and then he, points his finger at the title, and then he holds it up and he says 1 week, which means, and it was made official, that next week Hook will get his title shot against Samoa Joe. And then that's sort of the end. So Joe, I do want to ask your opinion on this segment. I have a couple thoughts, but I don't want to give them all away. I want to hear what you have to say. What do you think about this whole thing and sort of Joe's new championship protocol and some of the faces that we see coming out to challenge for it?
Well, first of all, I thought Joe looked great. He looked like $1 million. He looks like a mafia don. He looks, he pulls off that championship swagger really well. And it kind of reminds me of, when MJF was champion, he had like 4 or 5 different guys kind of coming after him at the same time. And kind of have setting up these little feuds now with Joe, with Hook, and then with, Heyman and Swerve. So you kind of know what's coming down the line. I can't wait to see, Hook's obviously going to lose, but he'll get a huge reaction when he, does some tosses and suplexes Joe for being that much smaller than he is. But yeah, I guess I don't. Try to think what stuck out to me as far as the Heyman Swerve part of this.
Well, we'll go back and forth here a little bit. So I didn't mind I love the Swerve stuff. I also didn't mind the Hangman stuff because clearly it's not over with Swerve, right? And I think before Joe gets to Swerve, we've got to close out Hangman and Swerve. And then maybe even have Hangman Joe before we get to Swerve Joe, if we eventually get to Hangman and Joe. I didn't mind all of that stuff. My sort of problem here, Asian Joe, I'm saying Joe a lot, so I want to make sure I'm talking to you. So my sort of problem with this was it just sort of felt, disjointed isn't sort of the word I'm looking for, but like the point you thought it was over when Joe raised his title up, like I thought Hook was coming out before that, right? Like I had sort with all the stuff, and we will mention Twitter here in a moment, but it just sort of seemed like a weird sort of like it petered out sort of right at the end. Like Hangman just sort of slinks off and leaves, and Joe's just kind of standing there and then sort of like just raises his title. It just felt sort of like not timed out well, I guess. I don't know if you felt the same thing. I just was kind of like, that's it.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see how it felt a little bit long and just like you're kind of waiting for a certain moment to happen. Because I thought it was gonna be over once Joe raised the belt. I'm like, I really expect to see Hook here today, during this segment. And then it's like, no, a few moments later, then you hit the music. And it's just like, maybe it's because of how the setup is and them wanting to make sure like Swerve and Heyman got out of the way. So Hook could come in and have his one-on-one, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking now that you're saying it, that's probably the reason why it sort of went the way it did is you wanted to have Hook and Joe in there one-on-one with nobody else. So that sort of is why people sort of stepped away. But it just still, the timing felt slightly off. Like I would have loved it if like Joe just got his title all the way up and then Hook's music hit. Like instead of like Joe's music. Joe gets his title up. He's standing there for 30 seconds, and then we hit Hook's music.
Yeah.
It just seemed like timing was a little off.
I would have liked it most in my head of if Swerve and Heyman were sitting there kind of off mic bickering at each other, talking about who's the top spot should be, and then Hook's music comes out, plays, he comes walking out, he kind of shoulders goes right between them, bumps him both the shoulders, they kind of give him the what the fuck look, and he just goes into Joe's face, they do their little stare off, and he says 1 week. And then
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. I'm with you there because it's sort of a crowded picture at the moment, right? So for Hook, if Hook would come through and just step through them, didn't even acknowledge them, it would have been perfect. Now, Joe, I said it. We'll mention Twitter. Joe, did you happen to have your eye on Twitter last night when there was a lot of talk about Jinder Mahal and Hook coming out of Tony Khan and Eric Bischoff's Twitter fingers?
Who knew the modern day Maharaja could garner so much conversation and buzz? I mean, this is more buzz than he had when he was champion.
It's 2024, and we're talking Jinder Mahal Hook.
One of the founding members of 3-man band.
I met the 3-man band.
Ooh, were you honorary 4th member?
We have a picture somewhere. I'll have to get it from probably Mrs. Money Joe, but one of the years when they had WrestleMania at the, what is it? I'm just going to call it Giant Stadium, MetLife Stadium. They were still doing the WrestleMania Access, and they had it at what it was still there at the time, the Izod Center, which is right next door. It was just the arena they had next door to Giant Stadium. And WrestleMania Access, I don't know if they even still do it, but it used to be they had a bunch of stuff you could see, they had a bunch of Andre's gear and boots from Dusty Rhodes and all this sort of cool shit that I thought it was awesome to see. And then they had a bunch of other stuff, they had some live wrestling there, in the middle of the floor, they had a ring set up and you saw a bunch of people sort of wrestle. And then they had a bunch of meet and greet, picture stuff. And it was cool because it was, you paid for a ticket to enter. So it wasn't okay, it's $30 for a picture. It was just if you want to wait online, you can get up there and get a picture or an autograph or whatever. And we just happened to be walking by one of the booths, and there was nobody in line, but there was also nobody there. And I think we had heard them say oh yeah, somebody's coming out. So we hopped into the queue. There might have been a couple people in front of us, and then out walked the 3-man band. And it was, for those who may not remember, it was Jinder Mahal, Heath Slater, and Drew McIntyre. And they were all there. It was me, Mrs. Money, and my brother-in-law was with us at that moment in time. So we all stepped up. We got a picture, and I think Mrs. Money even had some sunglasses on, Joe, and Drew McIntyre took them off and wore them. So it's a pretty funny picture. I'll find it and show it to you, Joe. If I can actually find it, maybe I'll even put it on our socials so people could see it. But
I'm hoping I hope there's some air guitar in there.
There is definitely some sort of pose that makes it look like, yeah, we're rocking out. Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I certainly, Scott George telling me don't hinder the Jinder. I don't. Trust me, I've met the Jinder. I'm not hindering anybody. Heath Slater's got kids. Anyway, yeah, that was an amazing exchange if you were following it, Joe. I got a random text from my brother that just said, "I'll go to war for TK any day." And I was just like, "Please elaborate." And he was like, "Check Twitter." And hi, Jesse Ozog. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us here. Jesse missed the start of the show, but just so you know, Jesse, we're already in Dynamite because we're not covering Collision and Rampage here anymore. That's on the Saturday Night Collider cast.
And Ryan's not here, so that's
even better. Even better. So, yeah, Joe, if you didn't happen to see it, you could certainly go back in time and find it. It was an amazing exchange back and forth with Eric Bischoff. And I think I saw that was the last thing, maybe even pinned to Tony Khan's Twitter page was his final response, which I don't remember what TK said, but Eric Bischoff quote tweeted it and said, he just put the clown emoji up. And then TK responded with a meme from some show, which basically said something like, shut your has-been mouth or something like that. Or I don't listen to washed up, whatever. It was magical. But his whole thing was the logic of how does Jinder Mahal come back and get a title shot? And then I guess people were saying, what about Hook? And he was like, logically, it makes sense. Hook is 23-1 and he deserves a shot.
I mean, if you know the WWE product, having Jinder come in and say, I want a title shot with no real reason or backing behind it, it seems normal.
It's logical.
It's funny how within these 5 years of AEW that we've had, how far that relationship between TK and Bischoff has deteriorated.
Yeah. It was so funny to see it happening in real time. It was so much fun. Just if you're really not if you're not following TK on Twitter just for these moments, then you're fucking up how you're doing Twitter. I'm just saying. Just saying. So Joe, the next thing we move on to here is a recap of Deonna Purrazzo's debut last week. And then we have the ravishing Renee Paquette in black and white, still a vision, backstage with timeless Toni Storm. And Renee asks her about seeing the debuts that happened last week, and Mariah May steps up to say, like, yes, I debuted, like, did you see the match? And Tony's like, oh, I got a screener. So I didn't see a frame of it, but did you do an arm drag? Wonderful. And Renee says, no, I'm talking about Deonna Purrazzo. But before I think she could even say that, it was a fun callback to Wendy Richter. Toni Storm basically was like, who? Wendy Richter? Where? And she's like, no, Deonna Purrazzo. And Toni Storm says, Deonna Purrazzo. I don't know who she is, but she sounds Italian. And she said, Luther, book a meeting with Donna Palazzo so I can meet her. And then she says, but until then, chin up, tits out, and line. And Mariah May whispers to her, watch out for the shoe. But then Toni Storm yells at her because she stole her line. And she walks off and Luther's left laughing at Mariah May. Joe, a fun little sort of recap here of sort of the debut, as well as Toni Storm just being timeless and off her fucking rocker. And I guess we do have to give credit where credit's due. Wendy Richter coming back up based on a question that somebody who doesn't say they're with this podcast in a media scrum asked the question. That's
it was Kate from Fightful. I don't know
who that is.
I think Kate from Mark Order knows her, so maybe.
Who knows?
I don't know.
Joe, I just wanted to say it once so that if something like that happens, we can clip it. I just want to clip the audio. That's all I want to do. I told her, just say it once. I'll clip it. You never have to say it again.
Kate from Fightful and the Mark Order.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. If any of us were in that situation, you could say whatever you want. Just say the Mark Order podcast. I'll clip it. You never have to mention us again. We've got it.
Great segment, though, with Tony and Mariah May. Doing a bang-up job as the understudy and, sadly eating that piece of chocolate that she got from Tony. And just desperately wanting Tony's approval. I really hope we get the payoff that they can somehow get a cameo or appearance by Wendy Richter.
They've had to reach out, right?
It makes me the same age as Sting.
I mean, she doesn't have to do anything. She just has to show up.
Come in the backstage segment,
I mean, you can't do it because she's on TV. Like, you wouldn't be able to do it because they'd be on regular TV. But if she's in an interview segment and all of a sudden, like, she's talking and then everybody stops and she just sort of is like, what? And she turns and they pan back the camera and Wendy Richter's there and she just says, you're going to fuck me up, huh? Well, on TV, like, you're going to mess me up, huh? Just like something like that. That's all I need.
Yeah, and then she storms up and then Tony walks away. Or give Wendy a fake, Wendy Richter is all elite graphic.
It would be fantastic. But a fun segment here. And then we move on to what's to come. But Joe, this is where we're going to take a short break. We've been talking for an hour plus, and we want to tell you guys out there about some of the other fine shows that are part of the Shining Wizards Network. So Joe and I are going to take a break. We're going to come back and talk about the rest of what happened on Dynamite, plus some news and notes of things that happened from this past week in the world of AEW. So hang tight, and we will be right back with the Mark Order podcast. But for now, listen to some of the other fine shows. Listen to the words from some of the other fine shows that are part of the Shining Wizards Network.
I'd like to thank each and every one of you for tuning in every Monday night to listen to The Shining Wizards. If you'd like to continue to support us outside of listening, we've got a few ways for you to do that. If you shop at Amazon, go over to amazon.shiningwizards.com, do your shopping as usual, and when you make your purchase, a little bit of that purchase price will go back to support the show. If you like to wear t-shirts, merch.shiningwizards.com will take you to our Pro Wrestling Tees store, where we've got over a dozen great designs from over 11 years of professional wrestling podcasting. You can become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/wizardspodcast, where each and every week we call out your name as one of our show producers, and the more you support us, the more things that you're entitled to receive, and believe me, they are fantastic. If you can't support us monetarily, if you don't shop at Amazon, that's absolutely fine. Continue to listen to us wherever you listen to us on the World Wide Web, and make sure you like, rate, review, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Doesn't cost you anything, helps us out, and we can continue to bring you the love fest that is The Shining Wizards.
What's up, folks? It's your boy, the Impact Player, Mr. Philly Ray, inviting all of you to check out the Turnbuckle Throwbacks Wrestling Podcast. Join us as we cover all things current in the world of pro wrestling, as well as paying homage to the old school, the Squared Circle. So listen in and find out why we are the recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment broadcasting. Find us on all social media platforms and anywhere you get your podcast from. And as always, we are the proudest members of the Shining Wizards Network and Rant Entertainment Media.
Are you tired of being lied to every day by the mainstream media?
Do you want to know what's really going on in the world?
Do you want to make up your own mind about things and not be told what to think or say?
Then listen to Inconclusive Breakdown, a weekly anti-PC look at the world of entertainment and current events, brought to you without censorship or filters.
You can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts, BitChute, and on ShiningWizardsNetwork.com.
And also, we're a proud member of the Shining Wizards Network.
Got 30 minutes to kill?
Come check out 30 Screams or Less, where we review a horror movie in 30 minutes or less. We cover new movies and old ones too.
We'll give our honest thoughts on the movie, good or shit, as well as a rating of each one that we watch.
New episodes weekly, available on the Shining Wizards Network and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Corey.
Come check us out at 30 Screams or Less.
G'day guys, my name is Thomas, one half of the Broadcast Podcast. With our podcast, we go back and watch wrestling events from WWE, WWF, WCW, ECW, AEW, and many other wrestling promotions. You can check us out on Twitter at The Broadcast, that's TheBrokast, and you can also download all episodes on Apple Podcast, Castbox, Castro, and many other podcast apps.
If you like your music heavy, then check out Radioactive Metal on the Shining Wizards Network. For over 16 years now, Radioactive Metal has been one of the longest running podcasts. Over the years, we've interviewed some legendary metal acts, had some awesome discussions, and cranked a hell of a lot of tunes. So join your cool Uncle Snowy and his co-host Aaron for the audio mosh pit that is Radioactive Metal here on the Shining Wizards Network.
Well, the action is underway!
What's up, everyone? When on the Shining Wizards Network, be sure to check out Wrestling Night in Canada. If we're not recording another kick-ass podcast,
Or playing in punk bands.
Or recording kick-ass heavy metal albums.
then we're sitting back, we're grabbing a couple brews, and going over everything to do in the world of pro wrestling.
Because we're from Winnipeg, you idiots.
The Mark Order Podcast is the only show you need if you're looking for dedicated coverage of everything AEW on the Shining Wizards Network. Join us live on YouTube every Wednesday night at 10:15 p.m. Eastern after Dynamite to chat along with the show. If you can't join us live, listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on all social channels at MarkOrderPod and use the hashtag #JoinTheMarkOrder, because if you don't find us,
we will find you.
I'm Kevin Rowe.
I'm Al Day.
And we're a couple of down under pounders that co-host Rogue Day Dots, an action figure collecting podcast where we talk about, well, just about anything that tickles our fancy at any given moment.
We're grumpy old men, and sometimes people get on our nerves. And when you get on our nerves, guess what? You get off the lawn.
Get off my lawn, asshole! We also go on a little bit of a mission. We go back and we're grading every wrestling figure line that's out there. I'm talking LJNs. I'm talking Jacks. I'm talking Hasbros. Who doesn't like a little Hulkaplex? It's a Gorilla Brain Wrestling podcast production found on the Shining Wizards Network.
I'm Duke Bags.
Kevin Rowe.
And together we are the co-hosts of Your Duke and Road. If you want to hear about some terrible wrestling shows, we got you covered.
Well, we talk about good ones, too.
We're currently talking about the death of WCW.
I know what we're fucking talking about. Sometimes we get guest spots, like from the Taskmaster. I like to listen to the Your Duke and Rope podcast. They're funny guys. That I like when they talk about the Nards plows. I like Nards plows. That's a good move. And I like the Dungeon of Doom. You know, sometimes I call my butt the Dungeon of Doom. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Oklahoma.
Let me tell you a little bit about my favorite wrestling podcast. All right. It's a podcast from two men, Duke Bags, Kevin Rowe. They talk about professional wrestling. It's a man's sport. All right? And who better to talk about a man's sport than Duke Bags? Oklahoma.
And once in a while, Vince Russo stops by.
Oh, you piece of shit! If you're not listening to the You're a Duke and Rope podcast in the back with the boys, you piece of shit, I don't know what you're doing. It's, you gotta slide one in there. If you're a man, you're talking about something only a man can do. You're talking about sliding one in there. Bro, take the time to slide one in there. All right, bro, you piece of shit, slide one in there. A Gorilla Brain Wrestling podcast production that you can find on the Shining Wizards Network.
All right, we're back here live on the Mark Order podcast, part of the Shining Wizards Network. And before we get back to covering the rest of Dynamite and everything else that happened over the past week in AEW, we do want to remind you guys that you can find us on all of our socials at Mark Order Pod on X, which we're live on tonight, on Instagram, which we maybe are still live on. We were live on before. I think it times out in an hour. On Facebook, which we're back live on. And TikTok. We're not live there. They don't do live shit that we can be part of with this yet, but we'll see what happens. So follow us on there. And when you're there, don't forget to go to our link tree because you can get to our YouTube page, which we know a bunch of you are watching on now, but we're asking for anybody who might want to, please subscribe. That's a great way to help grow us. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers. That's our benchmark. So make sure you go there, click the subscribe button, and help us grow our fan base there. Oh, good. We're still live on Instagram Live. Because I swore it said it taps out at an hour, but whatever. Anyway, the other way you can help us out and help support our show is go to that link tree and click the button to go to our Pro Wrestling Tees store, or go to prowrestlingtees.com/MarkOrderPod, or just search the Mark Order Podcast on Pro Wrestling Tees, and you'll find our store here where we have 4 t-shirts up for sale. We have 2 front prints, 2 double-sided prints, and any of the shirts that you buy there, money comes back to help us put on this show. It doesn't look like it, but there are a few things that are part of the show that cost some money to help us out and be able to do things better. So any money you spend there helps us out greatly. We thank everybody who's already bought a shirt, and we thank people who are going to go buy a shirt in the future. No sales going on right now, but maybe at some point they'll do another sale. But why wait, right? Get yourself a present. The holidays just passed. You've got some gift cards burning holes in your pocket, maybe some extra cash people slid in your stocking. So head on over, buy a t-shirt, and thank you for supporting us. Also, I'd be remiss to say, Joe, we also want to promote Saturday nights, our brand new show, the Saturday Night Collider Cast on the Mark Order Podcast YouTube page. We also go live on Facebook and X, but definitely head over to the YouTube because Asian Joe and Ryan Schlong will be hosting watch-alongs this weekend. Joe won't be there, but Ryan's going to have a couple guests to host with him. And Saturday nights is our new time where they watch along with Collision, talk about maybe what happened on Rampage and all sorts of other stuff that's going on in the world of AEW, or even just regular bullshit as they're watching along with the show talking about wrestling. So make sure you head over to our YouTube page. We've got a new playlist set up for that. We've got the first show in the archive, and we'll have many more to come. So make sure you support Joe and Ryan on Saturday nights and check it out. And it also is available in podcast format after the show airs. So you can also find it in audio format.
Yeah, come to live with us. We had a good turnout for that first episode, by the way. Saw a lot of familiar names in the chat. Some new ones that aren't a part of the Wednesday show all the time in the chat. So it was good to see that mix of people. And thanks for joining us, and spread the word so we can keep reaching out and meeting new people. That'd be great. And we should probably be a little bit more transparent on where some of that shirt money goes.
Sure.
I mean, we have to pay people off for whoever Ryan offends, because
true,
that happens a lot.
It's true.
We also have the appearance fee for Kate. Despite all the money we give her internet still doesn't hold up.
Very true.
So
we pay the appearance fee, and she tells us it's going to better internet, but I don't see it on this show. I don't know.
I know.
Well, Dynamite, and finish up what happened on Dynamite. So the next thing that happened was we had our next match, which was absolute Ricky Starks versus Sammy Guevara. And again, this is a nice callback to Jacksonville because Ricky Starks came into AEW while they were in Jacksonville. For those who maybe don't remember, when Cody Rhodes had the TNT title and basically had his open challenge, they were allowing anybody to come in and have a match against Cody and have the chance to win that belt. So one night, Ricky Starks got the call. He came in to face Cody. He didn't win, but that match got him signed to AEW. So Ricky Starks, found his home in AEW during the pandemic in Jacksonville. And the funny thing here, Joe, is commentary made mention that Sammy Guevara met his wife at Daly's place, which is a little weird because I'm pretty sure he had his fiance Pam, who he was with during the pandemic in Jacksonville. Maybe she wasn't there, but I believe they were together. So
they met.
Hashtag justice for Pam. That's all I'm going to say. Cutting to the end of the match, Sammy Guevara wins by pinfall with an inside cradle. Ricky Starks is stunned. And him and Sammy, he's laying on the mat. Sammy comes over him at the end and they're sort of talking to each other. And Ricky extends his hand and Sammy takes it and they're shaking hands for what seemed like an inordinately long time. And that's when Big Bill makes his way to the ring, puts his boots to Sammy. But that's when Chris Jericho makes his appearance to save Sammy, and brawls spill out into the crowd with Big Bill and Ricky Starks, because don't forget, at Battle of the Belts, they have a match for these tag team titles. An interesting move here, Joe, because this is Jericho returning to TV after getting booed at World's End, as he's supposed to be the babyface embroiled in a lot of, sort of controversy, which, to be honest, we don't know a lot about. So I can't have a lot of comment on that, but he seemed to get a pretty good reaction tonight. It almost is like they planned him to come out and make the save, in a brawl situation so that there couldn't be too many chances to boo him. But either way, we're just setting up our Battle of the Belts match on Saturday night. So, Joe, as far as all this segment goes, what'd you think? What'd you think of the match? What'd you think about the choice to have Jericho come out and save?
Sure. The match was solid. I thought the reaction to Sammy felt a little lackluster initially when he came out. Maybe he would have been better if he would have came to the ring off to the side in the golf cart. Just saying, yeah, famous incident with golf cart there.
Yes.
He also met Matt Hardy at Daly's place besides his wife.
That's true.
So that would have been kind of a fun little callback, kind of lean into that a little bit, but it was fun. It just, the two guys who know each other well. I like kind of the, mimicking one another, whether it's Sammy doing Ricky's pose or Ricky doing the I'm crazy face that Sammy always does. The underhook face buster that Ricky leveled onto Sammy on the ring apron looked wicked. That spot was the one that really got me. But Sammy winning is kind of the kiss of death for me as far as the outcome on Battle of the Belts, right? So I felt like that kind of predictable. Having Jericho come out and do the save no, that's fine. He can get his little, he's in Jacksonville. Give him an appearance. Give him a little bit of, of a pop there with his song. I thought it was interesting that he kept fighting Big Bill, and like Sammy's done with Ricky. He's out there just like hamming it up and like posing for the crowd, and then cut back to Jericho and Big Bill still fighting.
Yeah.
But it's fine. Regardless of any of the stuff that's out there about Jericho, whether all the speculation and rumors and all that stuff, to me, it's more just like, take a break, reset, go away for a little bit, come back fresh. Sometimes people just have fatigue of people after a while.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've talked about this. I know we've talked about this before.
Yeah, to be fair, we were saying this before any of the other stuff out there about like all the other rumors and speculation. Like we've been saying a long time, like Jericho needs to probably go away for a while.
Right, he needs to go away. They need to uncouple Sammy from him, and I think this Saturday will be sort of be it. I don't think there's a shot that they win these belts, but who knows? Maybe they swerve us and they actually change titles on a Battle of the Belts. That to me would be like the worst case scenario. I just, Sammy can go off and do his own thing. Jericho can take some time off, go record with Fozzy or whatever band is, he's working with, and, he's got the cruise, whatever. I just feel like we need a little bit of a break from Chris Jericho, especially because there's so many other people that they can give some time to, like, Takeshita. Like Takeshita can use TV time that Jericho gets. Takeshita last week with Sammy Guevara was crazy, especially seeing it live. I think I was texting you guys and I was like, what are you guys seeing on your screen now? Because I was obviously ahead of you live. And I wanted to talk about those repeated German suplexes on the ramp. Like that dude needs more TV time. Take the Jericho time, give it to guys like Takeshita. You know what I mean? Like, so, the way that this played out, I guess I'm okay with, because we just need to build to this match Saturday as they normally do. We don't really have an idea of what's going to be on that show. We'll find out. They'll throw it together at the last minute. And then you can hear about it on the Collider cast. But, it is what it is. I know Jesse Ozog was here saying this was weird, right? Yeah, it was a little weird, but, whatever. So Joe, we move on to the next match of the night. And this was the 8-woman tag. And again, sort of these teams that maybe we wouldn't normally see put together are put together because it's a special sort of homecoming edition and a little, tribute here to Brody Lee. But we have Anna Jay, who was number 99 in the mark order because she was the great one like Gretzky. Thunder Rosa, who has recently made her return. Willow Nightingale, who came into her own and got signed when they were in Daly's place. And Chris Statlander, who also started to come into her own in lockdown period in Jacksonville. Fun moment as they were entering the ring. Her and Willow are going around, and there's somebody with a sign that says, let Stoke, be your manager. And Chris Statlander slowly pulls the sign down from in front of their face, and it's Stoke just smiling. And then she slowly raises it back up. I thought that was fun. But that team was going up against Julia Hart and Sky Blue, along with the Outcasts, Ruby Soho and Saraya, Harley Cameron in tow. And as we get to the end of this match, Anna Jay, Chris Statlander, Thunder Rosa, and Willow Nightingale win by submission with the Queen Slayer from Anna Jay on Sky Blue. So again, a nice little nod, one of Brody's X-Faction members getting the win for their team. And then we do find out we are going to get Anna Jay versus Julia Hart Now, I don't know if they said that was going to be for at Battle of the Belts. I don't think so. I think that might have just been, I don't know if that was for next Wednesday or for Collision, but I don't believe it was for Battle of the Belts. It would have made perfect fucking sense to put it on Battle of the Belts, but I don't believe it is. Oh, wait, hold on. First Lieutenant Photography is telling me on Battle of the Belts, yes. By the way, First Lieutenant, I know we've been going back and forth in the chat here. I did see the photo of you in your shirt at Collision last week. You look fantastic. You're just dressed to kill in that shirt. Bummer, though, that they told you to put the sign down, probably because you were in front of the crane shots. So bummer, but it's okay. You haven't let us down ever, 1LT. So don't forget, we still have to get you on here one of these nights to join us. So we'll get that going. But Joe, what'd you think of the 8-woman tag match?
We are still on Instagram Live. How about that?
Don't make me forget to stop it.
It was solid. I'm glad they got so many of these people on the show. A good use of that. It felt very similar pace and produced like the other 8-man tag that we had earlier. Kind of similar format, but it is what it is with those kind of matches. I was wondering why they had Anna Jay choke out Sky Blue coming. Anna Jay getting the win for the team, that makes sense. But no, I thought they would protect Sky Blue, but knowing that it helped set up this match against Julia Hart makes sense. Otherwise, I would have thought she would have got the pin or got the win over Ruby, so that whole Outcast thing can kind of splinter some more. I like that all the faces were pretty much coordinated in gold and black. So I'm always a big fan of, coordinating tag teams or 4-person teams or whatever. And my only other thing is I feel like we still haven't gotten a promo from Sky Blue about the character change and what led her to lean into this darker side. I don't know. I felt like we never really got a response from her about this teaming with Julia and following her path. And
yeah, you're right. We've not heard from Sky Blue sort of about her journey or transformation. I don't know if I've honestly ever heard Sky Blue talk. Maybe once or twice backstage when she was still wearing the backwards baseball cap. Maybe she's not a strong talker, which is why we haven't gotten that. But again, I sort of have to go back to my gripe with Sky Blue is just, I don't buy any of her character work. And listen, she's perfectly fine in the ring. They put her in some big situations and she's able to show up and have her moments. That's fine. But she comes out and she's supposed to look mean and she just sort of looks flat. And she comes out when she's a extreme baby face. And even when she's sort of smiling, I'm I don't buy it. I feel like she's forcing all of her emotions. Just be you, I guess. And now they're saying in the chat, 1LT and Jesse Ozog say watch her AEW episode. She did AEW. She's not a good talker. There's some comments there too. But yeah, I just don't know. She's just still flat to me. She's supposed to be a heel. I get it. She's supposed to look sort of disinterested and pissed off, but she just comes out and she just looks like whatever. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's my only gripe with Sky Blue.
Yeah, I think if they could get her to be a little bit more natural and not so much playing the role of a face or playing the role of a heel, but just and yeah, she might not be great. Maybe she's not comfortable yet or really a great promo or anything like that, but you can still work around that by saying, saying more with less, like making a couple of words really impactful or making things really quiet and short and sweet. And then have maybe Julia there with her to help carry some of the rest of the promo. It doesn't have to be much. And there's ways you can, work around things and still present her strongly.
Yeah, no disagreement there. I think they just have to find something that works and start to grow from there. And I'm with you. I would hope somebody's giving her the note of saying, like, don't play a character. Like, just sort of be yourself. Don't force being a bad guy. Don't force being a good guy. Like, just be your best you, I guess.
I was really just hoping that they weren't going to say, "Oh, this works for Julia," having her go down this, doing this character, and she really like found herself and found her groove playing this character. Sky can do that too, and I'm hoping that that's not what they're trying to do with her too. Like, it worked for one person who wasn't really a strong talker and wasn't really confident in her face character, and maybe Sky can do it too. And I wanted them to not make a carbon copy.
Right. Yeah. No, I know. Well, we'll see what's going to happen with Sky Blue. Like I said, no problem with her in-ring work.
She did light a kid on fire.
Yeah, that's what 1LT's saying. Fun fact. I've got to hear that story. So I guess I'll check out AEW. So we move on to another match. Now, this one wasn't announced at the time that we sort of saw the card for the night. Maybe it come together late, or maybe it was announced super late. But we got Brian Keith versus Roddy Strong. And Roddy Strong does win by pinfall with the end of Heartache in what was a pretty entertaining match. And of course, the Undisputed Kingdom was out there with him the whole time. They didn't get involved, but they were there. And afterward, they set up the ring, and Adam Cole gets on the mic and says, when he said this place was going to change, he meant it. And so many people are concerned about the fans' respect, but they don't care about any of that. Roddy Strong, a 20-year veteran, one of the most physical, most incredible, and pound for pound, bell to bell, the greatest wrestler alive today. As far as he's concerned, the International Championship has his name on it. Taven and Bennett, not just the greatest Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions of all time, they've never gotten the respect they deserved. And of course, the Monster, the Dominator, one of the most physical and vicious men in AEW, Wardlow. Now that Wardlow's surrounded by people that respect him, he promises that when the time is right, they're going to win the AEW World Championship. So Cole says to say hello to your new home, or he should say your new kingdom, and make sure you get comfortable, because they're not going anywhere. They're going to be here for a very long time. So Joe, the match was pretty good. The only thing I'm going to ask you about the match before you give your thoughts on it, and also the after, promo, Brian Keith, they've been putting him on display for a while now. At the Ring of Honor pay-per-view, he wrestled twice, one in the pre-show, one in the main pay-per-view. They've been putting him out on these matches on television, sort of featuring him in moments where, he's not going to win, but he's going to he's going to look good and make the other person look good. I thought he did well with Roddy tonight. I just hope, I hope they're going to sign him to some sort of official deal. I haven't seen anything. I'm sure he's got some sort of appearance thing going on, hopefully right now, because they've been showing him. But man, if they're looking for something from him, I don't know what else they're looking for, because I thought he's looked good since they've been putting him on TV. And he's a really entertaining wrestler. He can wrestle. So any thoughts from you out of the possibility of Brian Keith being sort of officially signed and doing something with him? Would you be into seeing them bring Brian Keith in?
Oh yeah, for sure. There's a lot of opportunity for him in AEW, and a lot of things you can do in ROH. He's a guy that, similar to AR Fox, where AR Fox had a long history of, a resume really long and impressive on the independents. A lot of guys, vouched for him, and he got his big break, finally getting us to sign with AEW. I think, the Bounty Hunter's been doing this for a dozen or so years. He's shown that he can work really well with some of the top guys in AEW, and it makes sense to me to sign him on some kind of level of a deal. And on the other side of the coin here, I know in past weeks we were talking about like Queen Aminata, and rumors has she's been signed to some sort of deal with AEW for a while, and I felt like they've been using her kind of in a similar way as Brian Keith, as far as featuring them and getting a lot of TV time.
Yeah, I mean, both of them. I wasn't even thinking Queen Aminata. Both of them have been doing good work, so I hope to see them rewarded at some point. Even if you're going to say we're going to sign you, and maybe you're going to be focused in Ring of Honor, like cool, like But I hope they both get rewarded for what they've been doing. Now, as far as the match goes, any issues with the match and the promo that Adam Cole cut afterwards?
No, the match was solid. I thought I was really impressed by just the strike for strike ability between Keith and Strong. I think I said it last week, and I'll say it again this week. Roddy's recovery from the neck injury is a miracle.
And brave.
Yeah, I mean, if that didn't show his strength and his determination and how much he really wants that international championship. I know Ryan still calls him a faker, but
no,
even Taz agreed with us on commentary tonight. So
that's my guy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to call Taz a liar.
No.
So the match was solid. Right outcome. The promo felt a little repetitive from the first time they delivered it. And Wardlow looks like every high school, college kid out there with the hairdo and his ho-hum, disinterested look on his face. This is probably my least favorite presentation of Wardlow that they've had. But
I just want to see them start to use Wardlow. That's my sort of main issue here is let's do something now with Wardlow. Yeah, he's part of the faction. You respect him. We saw Roddy this week. Maybe next week, if they're going to give him some more TV time, we see Wardlow in a match. Doesn't need to be a straight squash. Give him somebody who can go and let him go a little bit. But I think we need to start seeing more of Wardlow and not just somebody who basically is the same character he was playing when he was with MJF, just standing there looking mean to be a heater. Because he can wrestle and he can do some cool stuff. So let's get that going. That's sort of my stance.
I will say, for the people who don't care for the Kingdom, I think that I've liked what they've done with the Kingdom now that they've revealed them as part of this, Undisputed Kingdom faction. They've come off with a little bit more edge and seriousness to them, which I appreciate. So maybe it's because Matt Taven's not wearing purple.
I don't know. Matt Taven. They are a good tag team. And when you go back and you look at some of the work they were doing in Ring of Honor prior, also good stuff. Solid matches. It's just I understand what some people have against them, Joe, just as far as personality wise, they just seem to lack a little bit. You know what I mean? There's just not a whole lot of personality. But it is what it is. Anyway, we go backstage one more time with the gorgeous Renee Paquette, and she's interviewing Deonna Purrazzo, or as some people call her, Donna Palazzo. And she says she's still on cloud 9 and she has her sights set on Toni Storm. And if Toni wants to pretend she doesn't know who she is, she'll be on Collision. She'll send her a reel or a film to watch. And that's when Red Velvet rolls up to basically issue a challenge. And she says, I'll be on Collision. And why don't you come and we can stir it up. And Deanna asks her if that's her stirring hand. And Velvet says, yeah. And Deanna says, good to know. And walks out. So that should be fun. I wasn't here to talk about Deanna last week. Now, I know a lot of people were looking for last week. And that would be Ms. Monet. But what I'm happy to see, Joe, is that there wasn't a whole lot of backlash out there, basically being like, boo, it should have been, Mercedes. Listen, Deanna is a fantastic signing for them overall. The women's division, of course, because she's there, but for the company overall, she's one of the best female talents out there right now. So, for the company too, it's a big win because they were able to take a big women's free agent off the board. So listen, if you haven't seen Deanna, she can certainly wrestle. I hope that we get a good first showing out of her Saturday night. I wouldn't expect there to be a bad, appearance, but we'll see. What makes me a little nervous is that Red Velvet sometimes sort of backslides, right? Like we had seen that before she got hurt. She would have like a really great match and then, she would sort of like backslide. She'd like take 2 steps back, or she wouldn't have that great an appearance. She's looked pretty good so far. So knock on wood, I'm hoping they have a good match. I have no doubt that Deanna would be able to make lemons out of lemonade if that's what we got. But yeah, I think that Deanna is a fantastic signing for them, and I'm looking forward to seeing her first match Saturday night when I will eventually watch it, maybe on Sunday or Monday. So, Joe, anything you want to add about Deanna? I know you probably talked about her last week, but
yeah, nothing. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think you just further bolsters that roster, the women's roster for AEW, and Tony Khan has said that he really wants to go after free agents in the women's division heavy this year, and so far he's delivering. So, and if he lands the big money free agent, I guess, then that will pretty much put a stamp on it. And once other people come back from injury in that division, whether it's Jimmy Hayter or when Britt Baker comes back on TV, I mean, that's a loaded roster of talent for women alone.
Yeah, there will be prime pickings for Wendy Richter. And let's not forget too, because we didn't see it tonight, and again, I wasn't here to talk about it last week, but Serena Deeb is on her way back as well. They're pushing her hard. We had talked about her, I think, a couple weeks ago, how she went on her own social and basically said, she was dealing with her injuries, but also she had some seizures pop up, that she was sort of dealing with the effects of that. So Deeb is coming back. Eventually Hayter will be back. Like you said, a lot of women, to mix it up in this division that make it strong. Adding Deanna just makes it stronger. Thunder Rosa's back. We haven't seen her in a one-on-one situation yet, but you figure it's only a matter of time before we start getting her involved in some singles matches. So things are looking up for this women's division. And I know we sort of always, say this with talk about this, with like a grain of salt, because we've seen them do really good things and then the whole division takes a shit on itself. But I'm feeling good about it right now. So we'll keep an eye on that match Saturday night. But Joe, we then move into the main event of the evening, and it's a tornado tag match, which basically is falls count anywhere, no rules. And it's Darby Allin and Sting versus Don Callis family, Konosuke Takeshita, and
Powerhouse
Will Hobbs. And we see some crazy shit out of them, as we always do. They're in the ring, they're out of the ring, falls are counting anywhere. We see at one point Darby Allin, I think, does a coffin drop off of a scaffolding, but also one of my favorite moves that was so simple. Takeshita and Hobbs basically, grabbing Darby Allin from his hands and his feet and swinging him and throwing him across the ring from one turnbuckle to the other. Like they're throwing a mail sack or something, and that's mail, MAIL, not MALE. Weirdos. That was fun. And then, of course, Sting with a Scorpion Death Drop off the stage through tables on Powerhouse Hobbs. That's what gets the win. And so Darby and Sting are victorious. Post-match, Shivani gets in the ring to talk to Sting. He's asking him about his opponent for his final match because it's coming up. And all of a sudden, Joe, we hear the music hit that it is a super kick party and the Young Bucks enter. They're back, but it's a different Young Bucks. Nick Jackson's wearing white, no beard. He has a mustache, hair pulled back. Matt Jackson in all black. He also has a mustache. Very reserved, not doing anything. They're just kind of standing there looking down at the ring, sort of like shrugging, saying like, eh. And so that's sort of, I guess, them making a challenge, although nothing was official in that moment. But it looks like we're going to get the Young Bucks versus Sting and Darby for Sting's last match. So, Joe, a couple things to you as we get your thoughts. What'd you think of the match, obviously? But what I'm really interested in hearing is, what did you think about the Young Bucks being the final opponent for Sting? I didn't know it was going to be a tag match. like I would have thought it was going to be a singles, maybe a short thing. But I guess the tag match is the way to go, right? Like, Sting can go longer in a match like that. We can protect Sting a little bit. So that, but also like this new look Young Bucks, because we heard they were taking a step away from wrestling, right? They were taking a step away from being the Elite. Well, we had sort of heard the rumblings of them retooling their, characters, but I don't know what to make of this because they didn't give us a lot. What did you think about this all?
Well, let's go the match first. So the match, the tornado tag match, or how I just refer to it as like the Sting special, because I feel like most tornado tag matches involve Sting as a way to help protect him, and also a way for him to jump off things, much like he did tonight during the Scorpion Death Drop and hitting one of the two tables.
Yep.
I did not think he needs to do that at his age, and especially with Revolution only a couple months away.
Yeah.
Like, don't need to get him injured this close to his final match. I enjoyed Takeshita's chops and then just Ming mugging Ric Flair.
Yes.
There's I think deep down inside, Ric Flair knew that Takeshi's chops were more vicious, even though he wouldn't sell it. Takeshita had a nice little callback with your rolling Germans that you mentioned earlier. He did that again to Darby on the outside tonight, which was just a nice little move if he can keep doing in his arsenal. But yeah, I don't know why you had all the same things, like Darby coffin dropping off of tall things.
Mm-hmm.
Waiting for him, eventually I'm sure he'll coffin drop off of Mount Everest in April or wherever he's going.
Joe, do you remember? I hate to interrupt you, but do you remember one of my fondest, I guess, Daly's Place memories was when Darby got jumped by Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page and they threw him down the concrete steps? I, to this day, think about that and I'm like, why the fuck would you do that? Oh my God.
I don't. And it was his idea, probably, right? It's like
100%.
It'd be really cool. Throw me down the steps. And they're like, are you sure?
Just Ridiculous. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, and then so it was fine. It's like give them a win as they build towards this pay-per-view. And I know the Bucks coming out, I figured something had to happen, obviously, with the overrun and with that match being the main event. I don't know what to think of the presentation of the Bucks. I knew that everyone was talking about they're going to kind of do a little makeover or change their presentation a little bit. I don't know if it changed enough for me, where I feel like they've done mustaches before. Sure, they're not wearing rompers and weird bright colors. I would have loved if they would have just shaved, cut their hair down. I think that would have been
man, yeah,
to really lean into the whole new us, more aged. We're not the young Bucks anymore. We're the Bucks, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and so the clothes that they came out in did not look great. So, but for them being the match against Sting and Darby, I like the fact that Sting can tag, like you said, for the reasons you said. It makes sense that he wants to go out with Darby as a tag team partner and them have a moment. The Bucks are, I guess, a good established team. It'll be a good team for them to, for Sting to beat in the end. I guess I didn't really know who else. I guess who Sting should go out against. That's not really really old. So
Yeah.
I guess having the founders of AEW who helped bring Sting in, I guess makes sense to kind of bookend it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't have a problem with it being the Bucks. I just and you hope they're gonna pay this off next week with some sort of promo or interview segment with the Bucks, but I just want to know sort of I need them to explain where they're at. You know what I mean? We went away, we had our fits, our meltdowns sort of right before we took our time off. We did some soul searching, whatever they're going to say. I need them to say it, right? So that we know sort of where they stand and sort of what their characters are going to be. Because just having one dressed in black, one dressed in white doesn't tell me anything. So I need them to sort of explain it for me because I just don't get it right now on first look. I'm sort of with you. If they did something drastic, cut their hair or whatever, we might have gotten a better idea. What I'd also hope for is if they're going to do something like that, Joe, if they're going to be more serious, they're not going to be the young Bucks. They're going to be the Bucks or whatever they're going to do. I would hope they change their music. You know what I mean? This doesn't fit this new personality if they're all business. If they're sort of corporate young Bucks, EVPs, whatever, I would hope they change it all, not just what we wear in the ring or the style we wrestle our matches. I'd hope that they change the entire presentation. But we're going to need to see more or hear more from them, I think, before we have a complete idea. But for me, just the first look at them. Okay, they're just wearing different clothes. I don't know anything else. And they're sporting mustaches. I'm sorry, moustaches. So, well, either way, Joe, that's the way the show ends tonight. So we'll get more about, the Bucks hopefully next week. And we'll start to sort of push the Sting and Darby versus the Young Bucks. So we'll see where they go from there. And then as far as Collision and Rampage or Collision and Battle of the Belts go, we've been pushing it, but we'll remind you again that you can tune in Saturday night to our YouTube, Instagram, or I'm sorry, not Instagram, because it's sort of funky. I didn't set it up for I didn't set that up for Saturday, Joe, because you have to like actually put it in here, then go to Instagram and like set things live in Instagram. So it's a weird process. But you can catch the Collider Cast Saturday night live on YouTube, Facebook, and X, and hear Ryan and his guests talk about what's going on Collision and Rampage. And we'll cover Dynamite on Wednesday next week. But before we wrap things up, there was a lot that happened in the world of AEW over the last week. So we're going to hit you with some of the news and notes. One thing that happened, Joe, as we sort of go back to last Thursday and the news that started on last Thursday was the Hollywood Hunks, Ryan Nemeth and Nick Nemeth, showed up at Wrestle Kingdom. They were sitting ringside for a couple matches, and then eventually the Nemeths were there for the IWGP Global Championship Triple Threat, and David Finlay beat Will Ospreay and Moxley to become the first to carry that belt. He started talking shit to Nick Nemeth, or Dolph Ziggler, and that led to a brawl that continued into the back. So looks like, perhaps Nick is going to be doing a little bit of business in New Japan, and I have more news on that coming. But an interesting sort of way to start for him to start dipping his toes into what else is available for him out there. I think it's awesome that he's going to New Japan. But also, Joe, seeing him start to dip his toe into New Japan makes me feel like there's a chance eventually we might see him in AEW. And I'd be okay with that. What are your thoughts on Nick, Dolph Ziggler, Nemeth possibly showing up at some point in some capacity, even if it's just like a Forbidden Door thing in AEW? Would that excite you, or does it give you a moment of pause? And the reason I ask that is because there have been a lot of criticism I've been seeing in places saying, man, we're basically looking at WWE Light with AEW because now we're just picking up the pieces that have been let go from the WWE. Like, where do you lie on this?
So I think a lot of people probably anticipated that he would go to AEW. His brother's there. He's bet on some portions of being the elite, whether it's during his brother's segments or other things. It just sounded like he wanted a different, a new start, a different challenge. So that's why I was expecting him to show up at AEW. But to have him show up at New Japan was a fun little surprise. That opens a door where he can work with a lot of, interesting talent that I think he can have really good matches with over there. And to your point, and to your question about is AEW becoming, WWE Light, signing a lot of the former guys. I think there's a healthy balance of that you have to find between not falling into the WCW trap of signing aging talent based on name recognition, but you still want to sign guys who have a ton of experience, who have worked, as main eventers, mid-carders, who can really help, develop and lift up other younger talent that you already have there. So I don't think you ever have, they probably need more of those guys as, guys like Dustin Rhodes and them start to age out and start to retire. Bring in a person like Dolph Ziggler, would be a nice group as far as replacing some of the older people.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying too about, you don't want to kind of just be signing that aging talent. Those are things that I think plague WCW, TNA, plenty other places where you saw, guys who were past their prime, who maybe had a little bit left in the tank and could draw some some viewers, but like, it can't be all you do. I bring up the question because personally, I don't think they're becoming WWE Light as far as just snatching up anybody who is in the WWE. I think they're being methodical about the talent they're pulling in and the people that they are to have interesting things for them to do. Now, do they all pan out? Clearly not. Andrade didn't pan out. I wish he would have, because I think there was a lot more for him to do in AEW that could have been really interesting, and styles of matches that we would have been able to see him wrestle that he couldn't wrestle in the WWE. He's likely headed back there, and that's totally fine. I thought he was a good signing at the time for AEW. Didn't pan out. Miro, I think that's a good signing for AEW. He hasn't had a ton to do, but I think it's a good signing. I think they just need to find more for him to be involved with. Adam Copeland, good signing. Like, he just looks like he's having fun in everything he's doing in AEW, because I think every moment that he has in the ring, it's almost like the holy shit, I can't believe I'm still doing this. Good stuff. Now, guys who are maybe older but aren't at the end, guys like Ziggler or Mustafa Ali, like, these are guys I think you sign because they're talent, right? Like, they are good talent. Ziggler is good talent. I'm not signing him just because he was a WWE guy. I'm signing him because there's definitely a lot that he can do. And I think he's going to surprise a lot of people with what's being lined up in New Japan. So, but beyond that too, Joe, like in my mind, like, you see a lot of rumors about like AEW is going to sign like these WWE guys who worked, on the business side, right? Like their live events and production people and stuff like that. To me, that's also sort of like a smart business move, right? Like in those cases, why would you not go with somebody who worked for the biggest, wrestling company in the United States and world, quite frankly? Like, if you have the opportunity to sign a production guy or a live events person or whoever, are you gonna not because they were a WWE guy? So, I understand the criticism. To me, I guess, again, I bring it up because I don't see it necessarily that way all the time. And they haven't just been going out snatching up WWE people who are retreads. I think they're being pretty good about the people they're picking up.
Yeah, I think it's just a natural evolution of AEW over the years as they continue to, mature as a company.
Sure. Well, Joe, moving on, we were talking about the women's division and Deonna Purrazzo, somebody we haven't seen a lot of, Britt Baker. And she did a recent interview with Ring the Bell. And she was asked why she sort of took a step back in 2023. And her response was, I think with our very passionate fans, they're very vocal with what they want and what they don't want, what they like, what they don't like. And we listen. I listen. So if they're telling me they want more or less of something, then okay, I hear you loud and clear. And a lot of them said, we want less Britt Baker. So if that's what they want, okay, that's what they'll get. Let me take a step back. Here's the rest of the women. Someone else take the ball and run with it and make the women's division about you. And you be the face of the women's division. And when no one else can do that, I'll be there to pick up the pieces and do it all over again. She did say one more thing. She said AEW right now, there's a new vibe, a new era to it, and it's just kind of figuring out when and how I fit into it. When I fit into that. And taking over the women's division all over again. It takes patience. So, Joe, it's a pretty good answer, and it's a reason why. I think we've sort of heard that she's also been dealing with injuries, but I think before she was dealing with injuries, we were definitely seeing less of her. Part of that could also be storyline, right? Like Jamie Hayter and her were involved. I think we were heading to a split, and then Jamie Hayter got hurt. So now what else is there to do with Britt? But I will agree with her on the point where I feel like we were seeing a ton of Britt Baker, and I don't mind seeing other people than Britt Baker, and they've been doing really well with it. So anything you want to read into here about Britt Baker's comments?
No, I think we did kind of like slow down on the Britt on TV stuff, especially after Jamie got hurt, right? So I felt like you're kind of in limbo of what to do with her from a storyline perspective. And I don't think they ever really put her in a long-term one. They kind of had her mixed in some other matches. Her comments, I think, they're fine. There's the one comment about, I don't know if there's her just being really confident, like she usually is, her being in character, but implying that no one is going to step up like she can.
Mm-hmm.
Where she says, when, not if, but when someone can't fill my shoes, that's when I'll come back. I thought that was, again, I can't tell if that's her being really confident in her abilities or her being in character, but so I don't want to, read into it too much. That's the one line that caught my attention.
Well, all I know is that we'll be on the lookout. At some point, she will come back. So we'll see what's on the horizon for Britt Baker. But I'm with you. Could be storyline, could be, or not storyline, could be her character, could be truly the way she feels. Like nobody can fill my shoes. She seems like she's got that type of cocky attitude. But moving on to some other things, Joe, we found out this past week that Roosh is going to be sidelined for a little while. That's because he was working most of the Continental Classic injured. He said in the AEW Continental Classic, I tore my hamstring in the second match I had. I will recover and return ready and hungrier than ever for a fight. And he put a picture up in that same post of him with his, hamstring sort of wrapped up. So quite a feat, I guess, for the amount of sort of pain that he had to be going through wrestling with that injury, because that second match was against Mark Briscoe on November 29th. And he wrestled all the way through to the pay-per-view on the 30th. So he went an extra month. So that's tough. The matches that he had after that, Moxley, Lethal, and Swerve. And then he was in the 8-man tag at World's End. Yeah, I mean, just sort of crazy to hear that he was working hurt basically that whole time. So hope to see him back soon, not too soon, because you want that to be healed up pretty good, but a bummer because Roosh was doing good work.
At least now it makes a little bit more sense of, maybe we can push Preston Vance as a singles guy now, kind of like they did tonight with him and Jose in his corner.
Sure, absolutely. So, Joe, Battle in the Valley, which you'll be at on January 13th. It's also streaming on Triller. I don't know if you happen to see an updated card, but a couple names got added to it. Matt Riddle and Eddie Kingston are involved in this show now, so you'll get to see some additional talent. The card for that match, Okada versus Will Ospreay, fucking awesome. Moxley versus Shingo Takagi in a no DQ match. That'll be fucking awesome. Eddie Kingston versus Gabe Kidd for the AEW Continental Crown. So, that answers, I guess, some of our questions as far as like this championship. How will it be defended? Where he's defending it on New Japan television or New Japan show, excuse me. So, interesting there. That'll be fun. Matt Riddle and a mystery partner will face Zack Sabre Jr. and Bad Dude Tito. Julia versus Trish Adora for the New Japan Strong Women's title. Hikuleo and El Phantasmo versus Clark Connors and Alex Coughlin for the New Japan Strong Openweight Tag Team Championship. David Finlay versus TJP. Volador Jr. and Mascara Dorada versus Rocky Romero and Soberano Jr. Shota Umino, Fred Rosser, and Jacob Fatu versus Tom Lawler, Joel Nelson, and Roy Isaacs. Stephanie Vacker versus Vivian Van. That's a kickoff match. And also Matt Vandegrift versus Goldie in a kickoff match. So, Joe, you're in for a pretty good card that night. Osprey Okada should be awesome. Mox and Takagi in a no DQ. The Continental Crown. Interesting to see who Matt Riddle's partner is going to be. So Joe's going to witness it live, but if you want to see it, you can see it on Triller TV at 10 p.m. on January 13th. So Joe, very excited for you to witness that live and in color.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I wasn't expecting or wanting Matt Riddle on this card. I know he's obviously a very polarizing figure, to say the least, and that's maybe why they brought him in there. But I don't need to see him wrestle. I feel like it's a waste of Zack Sabre Jr. But
I'm going to say this, Joe. I think you and a lot of people are going to be in for a surprise with Matt Riddle. And I only say that because I feel like we've seen Matt Riddle and what he could do in the WWE, but I think he can do more. And maybe we'll get pleasantly surprised once sort of the gloves are off and he's able to sort of wrestle maybe the way that he wants to. I'm hoping that that's what we get. You know, he's gone on the record and basically said, I don't want to be the goofy Matt Riddle that I was in the WWE anymore. Not that I wasn't, happy to do it, but like that time's done. So maybe we're going to see a different Matt Riddle. Maybe he's going to surprise us all, but it will be interesting. I don't know who that mystery partner could be, but maybe it'll be a fun partner.
Hopefully.
There is some news on Kota Ibushi as well, Joe. There were clips of him laboring through a main event match with or during his Pro Wrestling Noah January 2nd show, the New Year 2024. Some new and existing injuries appeared that limited him, and there were reports following that he'd been taken to a hospital. And then on Thursday, he posted a message on X apologizing to fans for the match. The translation said, I was scammed by a place called C5 Clinic, which is a nationwide clinic that I mumbled about before. Please be careful, everyone. Again, this is translation, so mumbled, probably not the right word. I think Noah will release information about my surgery, fraction dislocation, etc. Sorry for the sorry match, everyone. It is all my fault. He also went on to indicate that the injuries will not be an end to his in-ring career. He said, sorry for the delay in getting back to you. I'm sure Noah will report back with more details, but I just wanted to let you know that from the inside of my left ankle has been pretty messed up, and I will be having surgery on the right ligament. I will have a release for you soon. I am really, really sorry. I've been working toward my goal of 20 years, and I think it's time for me. To be active. I still have a lot of contracts to fulfill, and I want to do it. I try not to think too much about the future, but I have a lot of things to do, like taking care of my mother. So when the time comes, I'll tell you about it. So looks like some injuries for Ibushi that he's going to be working through, but he is not done. So I don't know how far back these injuries might go, Joe. Maybe they've been lingering, but we know we talked about it when we saw him in AEW, how he just didn't look like the same person. Maybe these have been lingering and he just never got them taken care of. And now it's, so bad that it has to be taken care of. But hopefully we see him back and better and, back to the Ibushi that we're used to seeing. The other thing, Joe, is clearly we've been following along Chris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway's sort of saga of will they, won't they? And after Friday Night Rampage's sort of interaction went south, believe it or not, Kurt Angle offered a message to Stokely, and it said, Willow and Stat, it's former champion Kurt Angle. It hurts me deeply how you've treated my boy. Stokely had a flight to Japan to run over Moxley with a Mitsubishi at Wrestle Kingdom, but he chose to be on Rampage to watch you two live. That to me is a changed man. 2024 is for the 2024 is for the short bald kings with a so-so credit score. Oh, it's true. It's damn true. Hashtag give Stokely a chance. Okay, I'm glad that's freaking done. Stokely, where's my money? Or am I going to have to kick your ass? And that was the video that he put out. Such a fun way to sort of advance the story. And really amazing for Kurt Angle to do. I really love what's going on with Stokely and Chris Statlander. So this is just a whole different level having it done on social. I thought that was so much fun.
Stokely's so good at playing up the character on social media and adding layers to on-screen story angles.
Absolutely. He's good. He's real good. And I'm interested to see where this goes with Chris Statlander. Joe, there's also a little bit of Swerve news that came out. So obviously Swerve likes blood and guts because he was involved in that Texas death match with Hangman Adam Page. But that apparently wasn't the only horror that he was taking part in last year. He had a role in Samuel Gonzalez Jr.'s film Night of the Missing. And it must have been a good experience because Gonzalez Jr.'s next project has been announced, and Swerve is again going to have a role in the movie Stiletto. The writer-director said the movie is an homage to early slasher flicks from the 1980s. And there's an official description that reads, a year after the grisly murder of a local exotic dancer, the victim's sister, Lyric, searches for the serial killer responsible as he stalks and kills his favorite dancers on the night of the anniversary. There is no word yet on Swerve's role, but it had been catching a little bit of it has been actually catching a little bit of press. So, good for Swerve expanding his reach. Good for AEW because it gets a little press, and we'll have to see what Stiletto is all about when that movie does come out. There's no date on it yet, but if you want to see Swerve acting, look up Night of the Missing, and then we'll get Stiletto at some point, I guess, this year.
Watch you just play some kind of mogul in the movie.
He's probably the strip club owner. I mean, it just fits. So Joe, we talked about New Japan stuff. We talked about Nemeth and Riddle and some other guys. There have been a bunch of shows announced for New Japan. They have a line of shows, New Beginning shows. And Nick Nemeth, Danielson, and Riddle all appear on the cards. So we're not a New Japan podcast, but because so much talent crosses over, we'll take you through some of those cards. So coming up, the New Beginning in Nagoya, that's taking place Saturday, January 20th. We're going to have Tama Tonga versus Evil for the never open weight title. Taiji Ishimori versus Great Okan for possession of the KOPW 2024 trophy. Los Ingobernables de Japan, so that's Naito, Takagi, Tsuji, and Takahashi and Bushi versus just 5 guys: Sonata, Taichi, Takamichinoku, Duki, and Uemura, excuse me. We'll have Tanahashi Okada, Big Tom Ishii, and Togi Makabe versus TMDK, Zack Sabre Jr., Mikey Nichols, Shane Haste, and Kosei Fujita. The Gorillas of Destiny, Hikuleo and El Phantasmo versus Chase Owens and Kenta. That's a non-title match. El Desperado and Master Wato versus Sho and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. The United Empire versus Bullet Club War Dogs. Tomokai Honma, I don't know if I'm saying that right, and Shota Umino versus the House of Torture, and then Shona Kato and versus Katsuya Murashimi. That's a kickoff match. That's the card for January 20th. Their New Beginning show in Osaka on February 11th has the United Empire, Ospreay, Jeff Cobb, Hanare, TJP, and Francesco Akira versus the Bullet Club War Dogs. That's Finlay, Coughlin, Gabe Kidd, Clark Connors, and Drilla Maloney in a steel cage match. Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr., Hikuleu and TJP versus Kenta and Chase Owens for the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championship, and Okada, Tanahashi, and Big Tom Ishii versus TMDK, Shane Haste, Mikey Nichols, and Kosei Fujita for the Never Openweight 6-man tag team titles. So that has a lot of potential for that card as well. There's also 2 nights for the New Beginning in Sapporo. Night 1 on February 23rd boasts Finlay versus Nick Nemeth for the IWGP Global Championship. Tanahashi versus Matt Riddle for the New Japan World Television title. Los Ingobernables de Japan versus Sanada, Taichi, Yuya Uemura, Doki, and Taka Michinoku. And then Toruyano and Tomoya versus mystery opponents. Night 2 on February 24th is calling for Naito versus Sonata for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, Shingo Takagi versus Taichi, Taka Michinoku versus Bushi, Doki versus Hiromu Takahashi, Yuya Uemura versus Yota Tsuji, and Toru Yano and Tomoya versus mystery opponents yet again. So a lot of shows coming up for New Japan, which have some interesting cards on them. If you're not into New Japan, you should definitely check out some of their stuff with some of the names I just threw out. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge New Japan fan, but I've been to plenty of their shows live. They're a lot of fun, and a lot of that talent can wrestle. So definitely check it out. Joe, there's also been a lot. I got a couple more here. My apologies. But there's been a lot that's been said about what might happen with AEW media rights because their deal with Warner Brothers Discovery is set to end is up at the end of this year. So we're not really sure what's going to happen with them yet. How much they're going to get paid and whether pro wrestling is part of Warner Brothers Discovery's future plans. But there was a press release that was issued about the 2023 rating success, and it made a point to shout out Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision, which maybe not a bad sign, right? Because it's basically saying this helped us in our ratings. So they're mentioned alongside the NBA and NHL as live telecasts that helped TNT grow its prime ratings by 14% among adults 25 to 54. And that point gets its own bullet later under the header 2023 performance highlights for brands in the U.S. networks at Warner Brothers Discovery. So again, we're not sure what's going to happen. If you're calling it out in sort of like a recap or an earnings report, probably doesn't, it feels like you're not going to dump it, for something else or, dump it all together, but we still have to see how it plays out. I just thought it was interesting, Joe, because, so many people are like, oh, they can't be happy with how they do on the ratings and blah, blah, blah. Clearly Warner Brothers is happy about this.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to make a move until they figure out what the NBA deal is, right? So I think that's the first domino, and then, but I think from what it feels like, what you're feeling, it feels like Warner Brothers Discovery will probably keep them in the fold. I know they were tossed initially; they were maybe going to be in the running for Monday Night Raw, but I don't really. I guess I find that hard to believe. So we'll see.
The latest seems like that's not going to happen. It seems like Amazon or, believe it or not, Disney for Raw, but we'll see. We've been talking quite a bit. Matt Riddle's come up in discussions here. I have to bring him up one more time, Joe, because he did a Q&A with Signed by Superstars where he talked about Goldberg. And he trolled him for a long time, and then they came to some sort of understanding. He said, I personally would love to work with William. I think William Goldberg would be a great match. I think I could get something out of him that people haven't seen in years. I think it'd be great for business. I know it'd be good for me. At the end of the day, if he wants to do it, he'll do it. If he needs to do it, he'll do it. There would be a couple of places we could do that. Maybe AEW, maybe TNA, maybe New Japan. If it was going to happen, it would probably be AEW. Now, it's worth mentioning that Tony Khan has talked before about his friendship with Goldberg, and he's hinted that they could do business together someday. We haven't seen anything happen. Goldberg's also talked about putting on a retirement tour, but it sort of sounded recently he would maybe want to stick, or he'd want to stick it to the WWE, and that might seem to work for Tony Khan as sort of a way to put this together. But that means that Riddle would need to be in AEW, and right now he's really not. So I bring this up, Joe, to ask you the question I'm sure everybody's wondering. Goldberg wrestling in any capacity or being part of AEW, are you for or against?
I am against. I don't need Goldberg to keep trying to, have his swan song. We've saw the last few times on, on WWE, on the pay-per-views, how he's been. It's been rough. You're at some point you're kind of a liability to yourself and whoever your opponent is. And I feel like if Tony signs him, then that's just, the fanboy in him signing the guy that he liked back in WCW. But so hopefully he doesn't. But you know what? They brought in Ric Flair, so who knows?
Well, true. I'm not a huge Goldberg fan. Never was. I understand what he did for WCW, and it was super important to them at the time. I don't need to see Goldberg ever again. I'm just not a huge fan. If they did something with him, I hope it'd be a one-off and it'd be done. Maybe you sign him to an appearance thing and he's going to work one match for one pay-per-view or one special TV show. You have him on a couple appearances to build it. I don't need to see anything else. That is it.
But he wouldn't put anyone over, though.
No, he'd put himself over. He's retiring. Well, quote unquote, Anyway, Joe, some unfortunate news about CJ Perry. We know what happened with her disgusting hand. Due to the splinters that she got, she went to the hospital. She had surgery. Joe, it looks like she's going back for surgery. She posted on Instagram with a photo, not of her hand. So you can go check this one out. But it says, on my way to the hospital again because complications happen with healing and infection possibly coming back. I find out soon if I need a second surgery. My God. All I can say is that sucks. Hopefully CJ Perry doesn't have to go through everything she did again. But we'll see. One First Lieutenant Photos saying she posted her hand again today. I didn't see today's post. I saw this post. I did not see the hand. I don't need to go see the hand again. But man, it sucks. So we'll see what happens with CJ Perry. Two last things for you, Joe. One, Samoa Joe is obviously our champion now. He did an interview with Sports Illustrated, and he was talking through some stuff, and he's trying to get fans to focus basically on what's happening in the ring and on screen instead of, what's going on or what's being said on podcasts and Twitter. And he said, I understand the world of professional wrestling. I've seen things work at a very high level, and I understand the type of people backstage that it takes for that to happen. I try to be that person. As a champion, you're the standard bearer. I'm more than happy to take up that mantle. I really want to make a focus on getting the fans' attention back on the conflict in the ring, and a lot of petty stuff needs to melt away. Let's get back to entertaining people. He also went on to talk about his beliefs that involve getting people focused on kayfabe beefs rather than behind the scenes ones. He said, my goal is to have really great matchups and extraordinary individuals, which we have in spades on this roster, and give fans a reason to tune in. Something is about to go down, and it's going to be violent. That's the vision I have for my reign, and I'm looking forward to executing it. So he clearly, we're going to start that with Hook next week. But beyond that, he was talking about wanting to face Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, Swerve, Hangman, and outside of the current roster, he was asked about New Japan's Okada, and he said he can come get it too. That's for anyone. If someone feels like they want it, then show up, and we'll see what you've got. But if you come up lame, I'll laugh in your face. So some interesting words in this interview with Sports Illustrated from Joe. The most interesting thing to me, Joe, is how he's trying to steer back to what's the product actually in the ring and not all the bullshit that's happened behind the scenes that's getting, that news comes out for, the all in, the brawl, the brawl in, the all that shit that happened backstage with he said, she said bullshit. Not a Limp Bizkit reference, even though they're from Jacksonville. That fits in perfectly with tonight. Joe, do you, I tend to agree with Samoa Joe here. Like, it should be about what's going on with the product and not all the backstage shit. Do you tend to agree, or is it just all encompassing because that's the world we live in today?
No, I appreciate what Samoa Joe is saying here and how he's trying to carry himself and the company as a champion. He's, to me, he's kind of a throwback of, let's do good business together. We don't have to be friends. We don't have to do all this stuff, but let's put on a show for the people. Let's build really good stories in the ring with the wrestling and how we build programs with each other. Just kind of the true art form of putting on the show. So I appreciate that.
It's refreshing to have somebody actually say we should focus on the shit going on with the product and not all the other bullshit. So I appreciate him for saying that. And Joe, the final thing I have for you, while we're talking about staying away from the backstage bullshit, I have to talk a little bit about backstage bullshit, because we've heard so much shit about the altercation between CM Punk and the Elite at All Out, and who has non-disclosure agreements and who doesn't. Ace Steel's wife, maybe Chris Jericho don't have NDAs. And everybody's sort of assumed that anyone who witnessed it had signed an NDA. But when you think about where it happened at the Gorilla Position, it's not a locker room. It's not private. There's a lot of people standing around. Not everyone's even employed by Tony Khan. There was the chance for somebody else to witness this who's not under an NDA. And that is apparently what DJ Who Kid of the G Unit is saying, because he was backstage at Wembley on August 27th to play Swerve to the Ring. And he said he wasn't particularly versed on the backstory or with the AEW roster. He does know what he saw, and he doesn't seem to have any restrictions about sharing it, because I didn't hear this live, but I, funny enough, was listening to the show before maybe he talked about this. He went on Sam Roberts and Jim Norton on January 9th and talked about it. Some of what was said was, You already know what happened in the back. It was straight Brawl City. So I'm not going to talk about that. The blood, killing, and death. Roberts said, well, I don't know if there were any murders per se. Who Kid said, you might as well say it. Norton asked, who had a fight backstage? Roberts said there was a fight that led to the firing of CM Punk at the show. Who Kid said, and I was right there. Roberts said that has since led to the return of CM Punk to WWE, so it worked out all right for him. And Who Kid says, because we were next, so they put us like to be ready to go. Norton said he had a physical altercation. Who Kid's response was, oh my God. And then Sam Roberts said, yeah, I don't know how much has been reported. There's a lot of rumors, but yes. And he sort of explains the whole deal. And Who Kid said, so it was ongoing, they told me. It had been like an ongoing, situation. But I think about it, it was like the biggest moment for AEW, and I guess he was trying to sabotage that moment. Norton asked CM Punk was. Who Kid said he wasn't trying to go out there. That's when I'm in the middle of I'm in the middle like me. I'm a fly on the wall. It was very intense. I always thought it was fake and all this shit. It's more real. Norton asked, punches thrown? Who Kid's response was, punches? Like it was wrestling back there. Like DDT everything. All right, I'm exaggerating, but the shit that's crazy is there was a yelling moment where he was like, yo, fuck this shit. This is our moment. Everybody get the fuck out of here and do your shit. And I was like, I don't know how to wrestle, but I was about to go out there. It was very intense, man. I always respect wrestling after I saw that. Norton said, who said that? This is our moment. Who Kid said, who's that? The big guy, the Hawaiian guy, the Hawaiian looking guy. So he's referring to Samoa Joe. And Norton said, but it wasn't CM Punk. Who Kid said, nah, but it was a guy who was going ham. And I was like, oh shit. So a lot of this lines up to the reports that are already out there, but it is funny to hear that DJ Who Kid was just standing around witnessing all of this. And he did go out there and talk about it. So apparently there's no NDA unless he's going to get one in the next few days. But Who Kid, Joe, G Unit's very own Who Kid. I think he's still with G Unit.
Is G Unit still G Unit? I don't
know. Well, I know at one point Shady Records had their own DJ, right? So it was DJ Green Lantern. And then I think eventually he left and it was Who Kid. But I don't know who Kid's with anymore. I know Who Kid has its own show on Shady 45 on Sirius XM. But Who Kid is funny as shit. If nobody out there has ever seen or listened to Who Kid talk in interviews, he's fucking hilarious. He's out of his goddamn mind. And I can only imagine the life of a DJ has to be wild. So that is it, Joe. That is it, Asian Joe, not Samoa Joe. His reign is just starting. But that's all I have for you tonight. So why don't we wrap this up and throw out some plugs. So Joe, why don't you tell the people where they can find you on social and what you're going to be up to?
Sure. At _ Asian Joe on social media. Otherwise, and in my bio on my social media, you'll see a link to my cereal review blog where I review random novelty cereals. If you have a suggestion, please let me know. It's been a while since I've tried anything new, so I'm due to do a new review. Other than that, let's see. Usually I'll be on live on our YouTube channel here on Saturday nights for Collider Cast for that watch along. So join us. I won't be there this Saturday since I'll be out in California for the New Japan Strong show. So anyone who's going out there, let me know. And if you have any recommendations of places to visit or places to eat, let me know that as well, because I'll have some time. I think that's it.
Awesome. Hey, real quick, I just had somebody send me a quick rumor that Pac was in Jacksonville for Dynamite. That's according to Fightful. And they're saying he may have been there as part of their multi-show process to get cleared from his long-term injuries. So let's hope that's true. Anyway, man, if you want to follow me, you can follow me at AntMoney on X, at AntMoney247 on Instagram. But most importantly, follow the Mark Order Podcast on our socials at Mark Order Pod on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, X. You can interact with us on X all the time. Ryan is really the primary one who's talking to you guys on X and putting shit out there. So if you're gonna interact on Twitter, just be nice. Don't fuck around or Ryan's gonna block you. As long as you're cool, he's gonna be cool. Thanks everybody who watched on YouTube tonight. We love all you guys. The 1LT photos, my best friend Jesse Ozog, Slonomite, SJ, Eric Freeds was checking us out earlier, and Pedro I saw check in too. A whole bunch of you guys. Thank you all for checking in. Again, we love to chat along with you guys. And thank you to anybody who is listening in podcast form. We appreciate you for supporting us. If you're listening in podcast form, make sure to subscribe, like, rate, review, all that kind of stuff. But we are trying to grow our YouTube channel too. So make sure you head over to our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, sign up for alerts, all that kind of stuff. Like videos, leave comments, all that kind of stuff. It helps us out greatly. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers. No timetable on that, but we'd love to hit that at some point in 2024. So if you're into this and you haven't subscribed, definitely subscribe. If you've never checked us out on video form, head over to the YouTube, and you could check out all of the shows, in the archives, in the playlist for our Dynamite post shows, for the new Saturday Night Collision cast, any bonus shows we've done, and also the shorts that we've been putting out on our socials that Joe's been cutting together, which have been awesome, Joe. I got to give you props. They've been great. So make sure you head over to YouTube to check those out. If you'd like to support us financially, you can head over to our Pro Wrestling Tees page and pick up a shirt. You can do that by finding our link tree in our social channels and clicking the button to go there. Go to prowrestlingtees.com/MarkOrderPod or search the Mark Order Podcast on Pro Wrestling Tees, and you'll wind up in our store right here where you can find 4 shirts to purchase. Purchase one or all, or as many as you'd like of each, and the money you spend there does come back to help us be able to fund our show. So we thank anybody who's already bought a shirt. I could tell you for a fact, 1LT Photo rocking his this past week at Collision, looking fly as ever, if that's what the kids still say, and just killing it. So we thank anybody who's bought a shirt and is repping us out there. Thanks to anybody who's going to pick up a shirt and hasn't done it yet. But we appreciate all the support. And that's it for us tonight. Like Joe said, the next broadcast we'll have is Saturday Night Collision Cast this weekend, so be sure to check that out. Ryan's going to be on with a couple guests as Joe's going to be out of town. We'll be back here next Wednesday night to talk about Dynamite and all the news in the world of AEW, and just to talk bullshit and have fun like we usually do. And we love that we do it with you live in the chat, so thank you for supporting us. Thank you for listening and watching with us. Joe, thank you as always for doing this show. And we will see you next week. Well, Joe, we won't see you, but we'll see you out there next week here back on Wednesday night on the Mark Order Podcast.
This concludes the Mark Order Podcast. We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming. Join The Mark Order.